Hello, welcome to the Live Reality Games podcast. And my name is Steven, and I'm back with more Surviving Reelfoot unfinished business coverage. And today we're going to talk to Josh. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah. We were talking a little bit before the show, and you mentioned that, you had a lot of coulda, shoulda, wouldas out of your previous season of Reelfoot, but there's not been as many for this season. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I kind of joked about it last season. It was a lot of what ifs. I kind of like, I could have done that. This time I walked down, I was like, yeah, no, I get it. That was stupid. And then just I think some unfortunate cards that I got dealt, and it's just, what can you do, really?
Yeah. Well, so you compete in Fowler's Point last year. You come to the merge like aiming for a deadlock, but you go out as the merge boot because Megan flips on a 6-4 vote. Walk me through just your processing of that game over the past year.
So the game was probably the hardest thing, just because it was always like, all right, I had a lot of I feel like I had a lot of power in the pre-merge of my season 10. And a lot of that had to deal with my connections moving forward coming into merge. Had I swapped on a tribe with Megan, had I chosen to be on her to be on my tribe, would she have trusted me anymore? Would that have influenced her decision to not flip onto yellow? So there's a lot of things that go on. And I just think I messed with it too much. I sat on it too long, and I didn't really talk about it to enough people. I was very lucky to have people like Sharif and James who were able to help me talk that out at certain points. But yeah, I sat on that for way too long, and that was part of the thing that I didn't want to do this year.
And so you get the invitation to come to the All-Star game, and do you do anything to prepare or prep for that?
Well, so this is where I think I have a little bit of a unique perspective on the game. Is I was one of the last people asked to be on the cast. I was asked on Monday, and I accepted on Tuesday, right before the game. So I had maybe 5 days. Yeah, I had about 5 days ish, having knowing that I was in the mix and that I was potentially going to be unable. Just for me to have to get that situated and all that. It wasn't rough. I had a very smooth transition into it, but I wasn't able to do the garlic pills like everyone else. I wasn't able to prep physically, mentally, or any of that other stuff. So I feel like I kind of went in with this really kind of authentic, like, all right, you're really fucked. Go out.
And so the cast is released to the players like a day or two before the game begins, and you see that there are several players from your season, specifically several players from your starting tribe, right?
Right.
You have Bash, you have Carly, I believe, right?
Yes, Carly,
Megan, and
Sharif,
Sharif.
and Megan. Yeah. Everybody from our original tribe. I think the only people that weren't on there were like Drew, Julia, I'm missing one more, and Barbara, right? And I know invitations did go out to some more people, just unavailability and all that. So it's kind of like crazy to think like, wow, we had a lot of people just from our original tribe, and I was worried people would notice that, because I don't think people understand the complexities of when you actually play with people. I don't think our original blue tribe got together that well. I don't think we got along that well. So I think people would have just saw that, assumed, okay, these all people played together on the same tribe. They're going to love each other. They're going to work together. It's not necessarily like that, So I tried to go in with the same idea. As like, okay, I don't want people to see this as my season. This is a big alliance. So I didn't want to go in assuming that season 8 or season 9 had the same thing going, right?
Well, and thankfully, you don't really have much opportunity that because your starting tribe doesn't really have any of those players on, I believe, right?
No, and I thought it was a great tribe for me starting off. I thought I had a lot of connections, a lot more connections than I thought I would have. But and I'm sure we're going to go over that once you start pulling out names.
So was there anyone else you really wanted to see in the season? Was there anyone you were worried about coming into the game?
So people that I was worried about were like Carlos and stuff. I know Carlos is like this kind of like big gamer, but he's also a little bit social, but he's also shy at the same time. So it's kind of like he has this balance of him. The people that had a lot of balance, like we know about the Franks. We know Franks were big players, guys who, whether he likes it or not, he is a big personality. But it's the quieter people, the people that are more tame, like the Megans and the Carloses that are a little bit more scary to me because I like to be a big personality. You see me in challenges, I'm yelling at people. I'm trying to piss people off to make them drop a ball or whatever, or to mess up in a puzzle. I love doing that stuff, but it draws attention to me, of course. And the people that are good at not drawing attention to them are the people I'm worried about.
Coming in the game, was there anything you were looking to change or do differently from your previous season?
Last season, my perception was I was the nerdy white guy looking for idols, scheming, all that. So my intention to come in this season was just to chill, just relax, enjoy your time, get to know people better, and I was excited to do that. I felt like I was having a good time doing that when I got in, and I obviously showed up to the house last as well, so people had been there for like the past 24 hours or whatever it was, and they had already been talking the social game, and so I had to just jump in and just find out who people were in a shorter amount of time, and I think it was fine.
One of the opening twists of the game is, well, you learn that the shot in the dark is in play. Talk to me your thought about that advantage or twist.
I hated it. I was like, damn, like I hate the shot in the dark. I was just like, it's so pointless. Nobody's ever gonna get it. It's like, whatever. It's a nothing burger. I don't care. And I was just like, yeah, Parker's going to try to throw into the new school stuff. And I appreciated that he said it off the bat, that he told us what it was and like how it was going to work. Because some games, they just kind of throw it upon you as a surprise or whatever at a tribal council. And that gets a little frustrating. So to have that open air and also let us know information like, okay, he wants to make this a new school season. So there's going to be other new school stuff. And we'll talk about that later as it did happen.
Additionally, you learned that the season is called Unfinished Business. And for you, like, what was your unfinished business coming to the season then?
I think my unfinished business was trying too hard. I think I played a game that I was having fun with last season, but I don't think it yielded the best results for me. So this time it was time for me to play the best game I possibly could. The game that I felt like would get me farther in a respectable place that I'd be happy with. And for me, winning more challenges because we lost a lot last year.
So you start on the blue tribe, that Kwoni tribe. Let's just kind of talk through some players here that you are meeting. So let's talk about Austin.
Austin was great. I mean, he has good vibes. I think he's one of those guys that you just walk up to. You have good vibes from him. He tells his little mascot story. And you just fall in love with him. How can you not like a guy who wears a mascot suit? And he and I would row down a little bit. We'd talk about sports or whatever, just because he's at a lot of basketball events. He does all these sports. So just like, all right, I'm a sporty guy. I'll talk sports with him. And so, yeah, I just enjoyed his presence. I didn't really get much other than that. He's a good guy, good old dude. And I had no problem with him.
And eventually he'll be seen as your number one in the game,
right?
To your surprise.
Yes.
Talk to me about Amber and Reynolds. You have to kind of look at them as a pair, I think.
Right. They were pretty good at not making it a pair early on, at least in my opinion. As somebody who didn't really know who they were, like I knew Reynolds from last season because he was my tribe handler and whatnot, so I knew him fairly well. But I didn't really associate the two of them together. Really, on that tribe, it was May and Amber that were starting to become a pair. I think it's just because they were the girls and they were getting to split off into groups or whatever whenever we did. And I think that really was more of the pair for me. But I love them. I thought, initially, Amber's a great, person to be around. Very fun, keeping the conversation going. That's all I really care about. I cannot sit in quiet. I need something. And Reynolds, he jumped into the game a lot different than I thought he would. He jumped in and he was already looking for idols. I felt like he was walking around talking to everybody in a different way than the rest of us were kind of talking, if that makes sense. And so I was kind of like, how do I want to work with somebody who's already jumping around so fast, right? And so I'm playing out options. Obviously I'm still trying to talk to everybody. That's kind of skeptical.
Talk to me about Frank is on your original tribe. Talk to me about Frank.
Yeah. Frank is one of those guys that I really was excited to be with. And I was so happy he was on my tribe because I felt like if there was anybody in this game, other than like a Sharif or somebody who like I actually had like a very good personal connection with, I thought Frank was going to be one of those guys that would be like my rock, the person I'd be able to go to and be like, hey, this is what we got to do. Or he's going to tell me, like, calm down,
Mhm.
whatever it is. I was excited to be with him. And I think he shared a little bit of that sentiment. We had talked before, like before even the casts were even beginning to be casted or whatever. We were just like, if anything happened, I'd love to work with you. And I think he shared that sentiment. And I hope he did.
Mhm. What about Corey, the lone season 1 player?
Corey wasn't our tribe, but I was very excited to see what he was about because I remember scrolling through his Facebook. I was like, this guy's gonna be interesting. I think we had Nate as our other big guy on the blue tribe.
Mhm.
Nate was he's obviously a big physical, scary guy, right?
Mhm.
Like I look up to him like the giant from the Iron Giant or whatever, right?
Mhm.
And he's just such a sweet dude. He is so nice, and like when we're out there, he's cracking jokes. He's so funny, and he just makes camp feel like a home. They all make camp feel like a home. Frank's building the home. We got Dad, which is Nate, and it's just everybody. Everybody's a family around there, and it's great.
And finally, talk to me a little bit about May.
So May is one of those people that I think people just say, "Oh, she's scary," "Oh, she's gonna be dangerous" or whatever. And like I agree, I think she is dangerous, but I didn't think that was necessarily something that needed to be said like right off the bat. I felt like she hasn't really done anything yet. Obviously we have time to work into this. It's been a while since she played, and she talked to me about that. I talked to her at some point. I said, people saying you're scared, and she says it's been so long, right? I'm a different person, and I think she probably falls back into the same category of what she plays as, and that's her preferred playing method. But I was definitely more open to playing with her than I felt like some other people were.
Mhm. So you open up with a reward challenge that first day, and this is kind of a world. This kind of leads to a word unscramble, and it doesn't work out for your tribe.
No, and it's okay. I told my tribe, I was like, I'm not great at word puzzles, but I will try my best to do it. And the phrase ended up being some take on, Reelfoot or like it's getting Reelfoot that is, or whatever. And it was a slightly different phrase than what I had remembered. So I was focusing on the phrase that I was thinking of, and
Mhm.
it was just slightly different. So it didn't quite work out for us. I think we had the right idea before the other tribe. We just didn't get the right wording down, which is okay. I think we still got something out of it because the yellow tribe did get disqualified in this challenge. It wasn't that big a deal. I was laughing more at some of the stuff that was actually happening. Apparently, Bash like elbowed somebody. Um, just the whole yellow tribe getting disqualified. I thought it was a joke at first, but Parker was like, "No, you're disqualified." I was laughing the whole time. I didn't care. It was a reward.
So talk me through just camp that first day as you're getting things set up and you're meeting all these people.
So the first time we get back, it was very nice because we just showed up and we said, what needs to be done? Who's doing what? And we came off of the list: firewood, fire, and shelter. And so we had a majority of the people go after firewood. I think Nate and I stayed back for fire, and I just helped him real quick, and we got it done in like just a few minutes tops, and it wasn't a big deal. I should say he did it. I was watching him. He did it, but I stood
It's a
back
team
just in
effort.
case anybody would. Yeah, it's a team effort. Yeah, I helped him blow a couple times into the fire. It's fine. My goal was just to be the everywhere person. I wanted to make sure that everyone felt like I was there to help them if they felt like they needed it. I know I bugged Frank a whole lot. I said, Frank, do you need help? He said, no, I got it. But he's a man on a mission, and he knows how he wants to do it, but he can't explain it very well because his brain's moving too fast for him. So his body goes and does it, and then he'll tell you later how he did it, right? And so like I just wanted to make sure that he knew that I was available if he needed stuff, and I did end up doing some grunt work for him, and just so he could take a break. But that was it. It was a family. We got it done. We got what we needed to do, and we built one of the best, I think, camps I think has ever been on Reelfoot, honestly.
You mentioned that Reynolds was pretty open about idol hunting early on. Were advantages in idols something that you were very key to find this season?
No, because I think if I was caught looking a lot, which I think at some point somebody said, "Yeah, you've been looking," and I was like, "Really?" Because Yeah, maybe I was, but I wasn't trying to. And I think maybe 15 minutes I looked for that entire day. I didn't care. It
Mhm.
wasn't my priority, especially because they said we had shot in the dark. I was like, okay, I have something to fall back on just in case. It wasn't my priority. My priority was talking to people, and trying to seem as least threatening as possible. Because the other thing that happened when we got back into camp was we started talking about, all right, what's our challenge strengths? What are we doing? And as soon as we started got on that topic, I don't remember exactly who it was, but I'm pretty sure like half my tribe is from production from the prior season. They were like, looked at me and they're like, "You're the puzzle guy. You're doing all our puzzles."
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, yeah."
Wait,
And then, yeah,
was that something you're looking to play down if possible?
I don't think it's easy for me to play that down just because I look like the guy who would probably do the puzzles in a tribe. And but I wasn't necessarily the one that wanted to like stand up and say like I'm going to do every single puzzle this entire season and I will win it for our tribe every time.
Mhm.
I didn't want that perception, but I feel like that became my perception,
Mhm.
like as soon as the game started, and it wasn't just on my tribe; it was every other tribe. Um, and further along in our tribe, in blue, we started coming up with these water nicknames because our tribe was obviously the water themed one. And we had tap water, liquid death, and I got smart water, which was probably like the last thing I wanted to be called in the game. Is hey, smart, smart water, and I was just like, oh. And literally, I got called that the rest of the game, and I felt like anytime that got brought up to anybody else, I was just like, please,
Like,
please stop.
can I please be Gatorade or something?
Yeah, right. So I don't know. It was frustrating, but I wasn't going to tell anybody to stop because that just obviously that rubs people the wrong way. They feel like they're doing something wrong, so I just let it be. But it was definitely frustrating at first because like I don't want to be associated as the smart person.
Was there anyone in your tribe you felt like you really clicked with, or you really wanted to focus on talking with that first day?
I think I talked with everybody equally as far as like personal relationship. I think game, I was pretty hesitant. I think I maybe dropped a few words to Frank.
Mhm.
I dropped a few words to May, and I dropped a few words to Austin, and I just talked and I just um, dipped my toes in. But I wasn't going to jump into anything quickly. But apparently, I was throwing everybody's name out early. I was talking about May. I was talking about Frank. I was talking about um, Nate. I was throwing Nate's name around, and I was just like, "What?" So I don't know.
When did that come to light that people were like spreading rumors that you were playing aggressively?
So to me, it came to light right before we went to tribal council.
Gotcha.
Yeah, she walked up to us or to me, and she was like, "I heard you're throwing my name out. I heard you're throwing Nate's name out." I was just like, I was a deer in headlights for all the wrong reasons, right? Like I might have mentioned a name and been like, all right, Nate's doing something that I felt like he maybe shouldn't have been doing if we lost, maybe, he would be the reason we lost
Mhm.
kind of thing. But it was just like in the moment, I didn't feel like it was anything of substance. It was just kind of like, if we had to go to tribal council right this second.
Is there anything else about that first day you want to talk about?
Um, I don't even remember what else the first day. I was just happy it wasn't a schoolyard pick. I think that was on my mind that maybe Parker was like, "Oh, well, we don't have a fair way to divide the tribe, so let them do it," or something like that. I was just like, "Ooh, I'm good." Um, it was interesting because we thought the red tribe was going to be the more unified one. We thought yellow, especially after that first reward, we thought yellow was going to be the train wreck tribe. Um, and so I think we got that pretty wrong in our
Mhm.
initial assessments.
In another world, if you weren't starting on the blue tribe, what tribe would you like to have started on? You could swap yourself with one player in another's tribe.
I think it is best to be on the losing tribe every time.
Hmm.
Um, and so I would have loved to have been on the red tribe. You switch me out with Sharif or anybody over there. I think that would have been a great time, just because I think I could have brought some much needed leadership in the challenges
Hmm.
towards some of those challenges to help the tribe. But in other senses, I think it would have been a fun tribe to work around, to navigate. And I don't think I would be the first or the second or the third person voted out of it.
Let's pretend the vote's still between Bash and Taylor. Do you care who goes home first from that tribe then?
I think in the moment I probably would have chosen Bash just because I didn't know how willingly he would want to actually work with me. I know we had floated the idea of working together because people wouldn't assume the two of us would work together. But I think in the moment between Taylor and Bash, I would have gone with Bash just because I feel like I have a closer connection with Taylor just outside of the game in general than I would have had with him.
Talk to me about that first night on the Blue Tribe.
The first night, I think that was the only night it rained, or maybe it was second night. One of the two nights, it was the only time it rained, and that was fun. It was okay. I didn't really care because I brought my poncho this time. That was my real unfinished business. Is I brought a poncho this time.
So you were dry finally.
I was dry. Oh my gosh, thank goodness. And it was fine because Frank had built all these kinds of things. We had a hammock, we had a couch, we had a shelter. And so it's like you could sleep anywhere. And I'm pretty good at sleeping once I get asleep. And so like I just took the hammock. I didn't care if it was raining. I just took like most of my clothes off. I was just like, fuck it, just keep these dry and I'll be fine tomorrow. So I slept good. I don't think I had a night where I didn't sleep.
So day 2, you have a couple more reward challenges. The first one is a memory match challenge. And notably for your tribe, it sounds like there's discussion of, do we want to work with the red tribe against yellow or yellow tribe against the red?
We had talked about that some in the camp life a little bit prior, just saying like, all right, we think the red tribe's going to be the tough one to beat. It's because they've got some big guys, some good people. We thought they were going to be very cohesive in challenges, and so okay, we want to team up against them and try to work with the yellow tribe, try to help them. And that got misconstrued. I think we did it way too early. It wasn't even during for immunity or anything like that. It was for reward, right? And so I think that just it was kind of a spur of the moment thing, apparently for May to say it. I think it was May. And I just didn't care. It wasn't me who said that, so I didn't think it would be my problem if it ever came up. So I didn't really care as long as I wasn't getting blamed for it.
Yeah, because in the challenge, May goes up to Skylar and helps Skylar a bit.
Right.
How was this challenge for you?
I'm not good at memory. I'll be honest. I tried my hardest and I thought I knew where some stuff was. I did not. So I just kind of said, hey, I'm going to let the other people know, try to figure it out. I'm going to try to keep my mind on some of them, but I'm not great at it. My idea was just pick up the two new tiles that we haven't seen before. And if one of them matches, they'll tell me. And we had to figure out a way to communicate. And I think we just came up with a pointing like left, right, go over, back, whatever it was. Right. And the hard part was just getting people to notice that we were doing that, because some people forgot when they ran out there because they were like, oh, I already know what tile I'm going to pick. Right. And so we just didn't sit down and talk enough about it to like, here, we need to do this. We need to do this. It was fun. I didn't really care. It's a reward challenge. Reward challenges are not a priority for me. Like I like winning, but if it's a reward, if it's food, if it's luxury, whatever, it's not that big of a deal for me.
Well, the next reward challenge ends up being a lot more fun for you. This is the endurance challenge. You have to hold a box with your legs with a partner, and Parker comes through with some temptations over it. Tell me how this challenge went down for you.
Oh, this was a great challenge. I think the first pair so my pair was with Amber, and we were actually holding pretty steadily. We had a couple scares in the beginning just because we were still getting our footing together. But once we figured out the best way we wanted to do it, I had my legs like fully extended and hers were bent. So that way she could move and I could move with her if she needed to. And vice versa. And then, Frank has this great idea. It's like, all right, if we drop, we get all the food. We keep getting the food. All right. And then once another team drops, our next team should drop so that we continue to get the food. Because the other tribes were more concerned about getting bedding or whatever it was, pillows or a chair. We already had pretty much all of that other than pillows, right? We had beds, we had everything we needed to sleep. And so we're like, okay, this is no big deal. So when they started taking food, we were taking the food options. And I think I got the best one. They, I don't remember what they got necessarily, but they got like drinks and water and whatever. But they put out this plate of like half of it was peanut butter and the other half was Oreos. And I was like, this is amazing. And so, they're counting down. I dropped instantly, like not instantly, but at the very last second, because I was like, I want this. And so I'm eating the peanut butter, and Amber's like, "Listen, Josh, I don't want too much of this. You can have the rest of it." And so I cleaned the plate. I took every ounce of peanut butter on there, and like I would sit there, and Parker tapped on me. He's like, "All right, it's time to take the plate." And I was like, "No, there's still peanut butter on it. Let me get it." So I sat out there for a good bit, and that peanut butter was honestly that pulled me through a lot of nights, because it's no secret. I hate the rice on Reelfoot. I think it's atrocious. I don't like eating it. I don't like making it. I don't like any part of the rice. I
Is it
avoid
the
it.
type of rice? Is it the fact no one can cook it right? Is the fact that it's just hard to cook rice well when like you don't have a timer or anything like that?
It is the texture of the mushy rice that everybody loves. Everybody loves the rice so mushy, and I just can't. I can't down it. I try to take a spoonful every time. It's a struggle for me to swallow it. And so I'm just like, whatever. I'll take some of the crispy bits if there's crispy bits. I'll throw that in. I can eat that. But everybody loves it so mushy. I'm just like, whatever. I'll make the rice for you. I'm not going to eat it.
So your gross food challenge that you never want to see is mushy rice. Like that'll like
Right,
or like
right.
like what about rice pudding? Would that do you in?
If as long as it had any other flavor other than just rice, I think it would have been okay, right? Last season we threw in garlic pills, we did all kinds of stuff. But this season we had nothing. It's just like I can live off of it. I ate enough before the game to last me through the week if I needed to, and that's fine.
And you end the day with your first immunity challenge. This is a multi-stage challenge that has some swimming, has some throwing some balls in the buckets, has a snake puzzle variant. How is this challenge for you?
I think this challenge goes fine for me. I was curious because when we were standing at our puzzle stations, they had us already staying at our stations, and so we couldn't see the swimming thing. So all we saw was yellow had already passed it, and the other two tribes were not done yet. And we were like, okay, there's obviously something going on. And Carly points out, and she's like, well, the raft, it looks like it's way out in the lake. I was like, oh wow, that is true. So I think the swimming part, obviously, it scared me. I wanted to go out and see it. But I mean, this was kind of where I started to have the fun. Is like, all right, this is a mini challenge. This is where I can like really have to be serious. And I would tell people, like, listen, just give me enough time on the puzzle, and I'll get it done. I don't care, like how long they've had it. If you get me to the puzzle, I will get us a try. And that was pretty much what happened. Was I think Harley got started. She had a few-minute lead on me. And then we finished the tossing next, and then Red was right behind. And I don't know. I just know how to solve puzzles. It was a snake puzzle. It's got basically two ends. It's the tail piece and the head piece. And then in the middle, they had like a weird like butterfly shaped piece that I knew was somewhere in there. So it's just working off those two pieces. If you find a piece, you place it. If it doesn't fit anywhere, move it somewhere else and try again. And I think I solved that quicker than people expected, because I think we got first in that challenge because of it. And so it was a good feeling, of course, having won, since especially we lost a lot of immunity challenges my last season. I think it was just a good feeling.
Talk to me about being good with puzzles. Does it come from practice? Does it come from just being able to kind of step back and really assess what the challenge that's in front of you? Like if people want to get good at puzzles, what should they do?
So for me, I think it's a little bit of both. I think growing up, I did a lot of tangrams and jigsaw puzzles in general. So I kind of understand what I'm looking for when I'm solving something. I'm looking for key pieces, right? When you do a jigsaw puzzle, you solve the border, right? And you work your way inwards. And some people solve the image. So if it's like a gorilla puzzle, you find the gorilla face. Then you work outside of that. And then you work from the border in. It's easier to find 2 points and work from those 2 points inwards together. That way you can find middle ground, you can find it and then work back out. So with a puzzle like this, it's just finding those key points and working off of it. As far as just like any physical puzzle in general, it's really about understanding the shape of the piece. So like when we did the tangram, the octagon puzzle later, it's about understanding why this piece is shaped the way it is, why it would fit here rather than down here. And I think I just understand that from having done puzzles for so long, for like my entire life, because I'd always grow up doing just little puzzles. So it's a mixture of both. You just have to kind of understand it.
And if people want to go somewhere to buy puzzles, or maybe an Etsy shop out there.
Well, I do have an Etsy shop where I do make puzzles, and I do have friends that make puzzles, so I can definitely hit you up with that if you reach out to me.
So you end up you end day 2. You've won immunity. What's the vibe like back at camp?
I think we're just happy. I think we're happy. Morale is good, and that's all that matters. I wasn't paranoid, so I went and slept. That's all I really needed, is let me get some sleep for the next day, and we'll be fine. And I think I slept good. Frank had made a hammock, and then he made hammock 2.0. Hammock 2.0 was amazing. It was like 2 dead trees that were like laying flat, basically hanging off a cliff. And he just tied some ropes around it. And I was like, this is the best sleep I've had on a Survivor game in general. Like, at all. Forget the tarps, forget all of that. I'm sleeping here the rest of the game if I
can. So over the course of the second day, had you been making more strategic overtures to players, or were you still kind of lying low, letting to see if people come to you?
I still wanted people to walk up to me and approach me, but I think I was still in the middle ground of that. So I wanted to talk to people. I think I had talked to Frank, and I was like, hey, I think this Austin guy, he's a good dude. I think we could work well together. And at that point, it's just about finding 1 or 2 more people. And that's all you need, really. And so I think it was basically me just talking to Frank and being like, let's figure out something. We have plenty of time. Let's try to get some numbers in general.
Were you starting to see any sort of factions form in this original tribe?
In my mind, I didn't think there was anything big that was coming together. I thought maybe the girls and Reynolds were becoming a thing, but Reynolds was very good about talking with me and talking with Frank. And so I wasn't too worried about it. Like, I really thought that the paranoia would begin once we actually lost. And I thought that would be the catalyst for finding anything. But I wasn't worried at all. I neglected to think that there was a lot of people from production on my tribe, and that could ever be a possibility. So I wasn't even considering it. I just didn't know.
And so if you could like rank the players in the tribe that you thought were most important to your game and least important at that point, what would it be?
At that point, I would have thought Frank was number 1, because I felt like he would have the best connections on other tribes to keep me safe. And then I would say probably Austin, May and Reynolds are probably on the same tier, and then Amber and Nate on that last, because I couldn't really gauge with Amber where she was, and I figured Nate was more focused on not strategies. I'm not saying he's not good at strategy or anything like that. He's a great guy, and he's good at strategy. He's good at making those alliances, what he needs to do. But I don't think that was his focus in the game. So it wasn't my focus to make strategy with him, to do strategy with him, because it wasn't his focus, in my opinion, in my perspective, what I saw.
Were you kind of starting to eye anyone as a potential first boot?
I think in my own head, I was thinking we have people that could potentially, like Nay was, obviously people thought she was a threat. We had Nate, who was kind of like this big physical presence, and nobody really wanted to have to go against him later on in the game. So if somebody brought up his name, I wouldn't be opposed. We had Austin, who wasn't really, in my opinion, in the same cliques as everyone else, and I was proven wrong by that. But I just felt like there was a lot of people on the outs, and I didn't really think I was one of those people. I thought I had enough social connection, social integration that I would be okay for at least one vote.
So the next day, you learn that Bash is the first person voted out. Any thoughts on that?
I apparently had a very big reaction to that, and I feel bad because I did get some messages from Bash after the game, and I just feel heartbroken that that's the way I acted after he got eliminated. Apparently, I was just like screaming and like, oh no! And I think that's just part of me amping up my energy level and all that in the game, and just playing up the rivalry or whatever. So I feel bad that was his perception when he saw that, and I regret that. But I think in the moment it was kind of like, oh wow, like this is the game. I wasn't the first one out. We're good.
Mm-hmm. And so you have your second mini challenge. This is a blindfold challenge that has, collecting items, doing something with the alphabet. There's a math portion at the very end. Where were
Right.
you in this challenge?
So I was on the alphabet with Austin, and in the moment I was thinking, like as soon as the challenge started, like, why am I not on the math problem? I would have been fine with this. I think I would have understood it, been able to do it very well. And in the moment, I was just kind of like, why did we put Nate on this? Nate said he was good with numbers and he would be good at basic math, which is what he said in the game. And I'm thinking, like, basic math, they're not going to give us a plus whatever problem. They're going to give us some kind of tongue twister or whatever it is. And so I thought I had regrets about it, but he obviously ended up pulling it out for us, and I was very happy with that. But in the moment, I was thinking, why? It was a question mark in my head. And so that kind of played into that little aspect of like, why is Nate in this position? But he proved me wrong. He absolutely proved me wrong. And I'm glad to say that because I had a bad impression on him. And the fact that he did prove me wrong says more about me than it does about him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Clark is the next person voted out from that tribe, and then this leads to the third mini challenge, the gross food challenge. How was this for you?
So I set up. I was like, listen, last time I saw this gross food challenge, they had balutes and all kinds of bugs. I'm good. I'm gonna pass on that. If I'm having a hard time getting down the rice, I don't think I can do the balut. And then they started out with this first one, which was collard greens, and I'm like, that is insulting to my Southern heritage right there. I'm a good old Southern boy right there. That is collard greens. I would have smacked down on that and would have a great time. So a part of me wishes I did compete because I think the last one, the before the tiebreaker, was the onion, right? Austin had said before, it's like, if it's anything large, I won't be able to get it down because I can't chew up stuff and swallow big amounts. It has to be something smaller. Like retrospectively thinking, like it's just an onion. I could have gotten an onion down. Like I get him like physically not being able to get it down just because his windpipe's too small or whatever it is. I could have gotten an onion down. So like the fact that I didn't compete, it obviously bothers me, but it's just like, how was I supposed to know? They went from having an actual gross foods to this is the stuff we found at the grocery store.
So you mentioned before you always wish you were in the first tribe that goes to tribal council, but congrats, you're now going to the third tribal council this season. Walk me through this strategy as you head back to camp.
Just make sure it wasn't me, and I was just trying to stay calm. I wasn't freaking out. I was just hanging out. I went to my spot. I just hung out there. I stayed in the shelter. I didn't want to seem like I was running around with idols, whatever. And I thought I was okay. I thought it was fine. I thought maybe I'd get some votes from a few people, but I wasn't too worried about it because this is the point where May comes up to me like, I heard you throwing out my name. I heard you throwing out Nate's name. So I was like, okay, cool. May and Nate are going to vote for me. Maybe Amber's going to vote for me. But I think I can get Austin, Frank, and maybe Reynolds because I didn't understand that Reynolds and Amber were that close to each other. So I was like, okay, I can maybe squeeze out 4 on a 7-person tribe, and that's enough. And so we're moving on with this tribe, and we're getting together. Nate says he's willing to vote with me, and I hear that from other people that that we have an alliance, we have the guys, and so I was fine. And then I'd say 5-10 minutes before tribal council, Austin pulls me aside. He's like, dude, I can't be seen telling you this, but they're all writing your name down. And I was just, my heart sank in that moment. I was like, oh. And so the fun little tidbit that I brought was they had an option where you can bring like clothes and necklaces and whatever. And so I asked Parker, I was like, my necklace, can I just bring a fake idol? He was like, sure, bring whatever you want. He was just happy that I asked him. And so I brought a fake idol, but it was the fake idol I had won from the last season. And so production knew that it was mine, right? May had put on the auction, which I didn't realize. So she knew that was part of the auction and that I had won that. So I wasn't thinking really right with that, but I just took that at camp. I just sat down on my bench. I threw it on. And I just sat there, smiled, and I just sat there. And then somebody asked me, like, isn't that the thing you got from last year? I was like, I knew in my mind, I was like, cover's bone. damn. But I just sat there and I just said, no, yeah, it's fine.
Do you wish like you had come up with saying like, nope, found it in the challenge. I found a note that said this thing had unfinished business and now has power. Do you wish like you had come up with something like that on the spot?
Right. Had I said something a little bit more believable instead of like finding it at camp, because obviously that idol had already been found, so somebody already knew that. I just think I wanted it to be believable, and yeah, if I had something about in the challenge, maybe one of the reward challenges, maybe it could have been a little bit more believable, but I didn't. It wasn't a big deal.
So this is the first time you've ever been targeted in a Survivor game, besides that merge vote where it became very clear it's us versus them, right?
Right. And so once I realized it was everybody against me, I was like, all right, I have one other option, and that's shot in the dark. And the reason I pulled out the fake idol was to scare anybody into believing. Like, not everybody was going to sit there and talk and say that is a fake idol. They were not going to all sit in a circle and say that, right? So if I could scare one person into changing a vote, if I played a shot in the dark, I'd be fine. We wouldn't have to revote. But I was kind of hoping for a revote. I wanted to see where everybody else's allegiances lied, so I could help break up that in case we had to lose another trial. But didn't end up like that.
So before Austin tells you, hey, they're writing your name down, who are you going to vote for?
I was going to vote. I think we were voting for May. I think that was the goal. Was we were voting for May, and that's who I planned on going for. But then that changed immediately once it happened. I knew I wasn't going to vote, so I didn't care what name was in.
And so had Austin never told you that, you likely would have been blindsided.
I probably would have. I don't think I would have played the shot in the dark, and in that case, I wouldn't have been safe. So yeah, I think I would have been blindsided, and I'd be the third person out for sure. So I definitely credit Austin that. Yeah.
In retrospect, looking at your interactions with other cast members or the tribe mates, were there any clues or hints that you maybe looking back, you now you pick up on that you didn't at the time?
Well, I think it's just that kind of I was shit out of luck that I got stuck in a tribe with majority of former production members who had been working closely together for several seasons or talking to each other at least. And it's just like, I wasn't part of the pre-gaming, back from December when the cast was first started, being told like, hey, we want you on the cast. I wasn't a part of that. So I think once the cards fell in the spot and I ended up on that blue tribe, I think I was just kind of out of luck unless I really stood up and did something spectacular to win people over. And that's part of the reason why I was okay with taking this like puzzle roll and whatever, because I was like, okay, maybe if they think they can't win the challenge without the puzzle guy, I'll be fine.
So talk me through this tribal council for you.
The tribal council was very stressful. Oh my gosh. I was on the verge of having a breakdown, but I had to hold it together. I had to give a clear answer. I had to say what I needed to say to try to make anybody believe that I had an idol, I had something up my sleeve, and that I wasn't going to do what they all thought I was going to do. And so I had to just keep it together. And I felt like I did an okay job of that. I gave a good answer. I don't even remember what I said, but I felt like it was a decent enough answer. And tribal council happens. We go to vote. I very clearly pick up a scroll. And my process for it was, obviously we have a little box. You open it up. And there's just scrolls all over. I think they go in and they shake it or they place it however they want. And when I opened the box, I saw one scroll that stood out to me. That's all the one that I wanted. There was a bunch that were like laying up on the sides. There was like 3 that are in the middle. And there was this one that was just facing a different way than the other ones. And I was like, that one looks right. So I picked it up, put it in my pocket, and that was it. And they call for advantages, whatever. I pull up my fake idol. I put that on my lap, on my stool or whatever. And they say, I don't want to play this. I'm going to play this first just in case, so I don't have to waste it. And so I walk up and, you can see through the little paper, right? And I thought it said not safe for first. And I was just like, because like at that moment I was like, well, I'm going home. That's shit. I'm going to go home. I'm going to drive home and sulk about it for the next year again. And then he opens it and it actually says safe. I was like, I was shocked. I was actually like visibly shocked. I felt like. And I remember like patting the guys on my back and it was just saying like, good luck guys, have fun voting. And Reynolds pokes his head around. He's like, oh, I already did. And it was so funny in the moment, but I was like, I was frustrated. I was tired. I was hungry. I I was done in the moment. So I was just like, let's get tribal council over. I want to go back and I want to just not exist for a few minutes.
So you end up negating 5 votes, and a lone vote cast by Reynolds takes out Nate. Was this your ideal person to go home from your tribe? You mentioned kind of like not having a connection with him really at that point.
I felt like he was one of those guys that I could have worked towards making a good connection, making a solid connection with. So no, I don't think that was the person I would have liked to go home. I think in the moment I would have rather like an Amber going home, just because I wasn't connecting with her all that well. Then I think we had really good conversations, but I felt like strategy-wise we weren't going in the same direction. But I mean, at that point, I just didn't care as long as it wasn't me, honestly. Nate going home was a big shock. I was surprised, and I said, "Oh shit, we're gonna have to really pick up the pace and challenges now." But that didn't matter.
How was heading back to camp after this tribal council?
I love this because my initial thing was I had tribal council was over. I went to my torch and I walked away. I didn't care who was behind me. I didn't care if anybody was actually following me. I was not a part of that tribe in the moment, and so I stormed off. I having my little temper tantrum, whatever. And I took my torch and I slammed it in the ground. So it was like still standing in the ground, like it was poked out. And I went back into the camp and I was like, "Where's the flint? I want the flint." Because in my head, I was like, last season I didn't get to make a single fire because I was with Megan the entire time for the most part, and I never got to make fire. And so I really wanted to make a fire just to give it for my survivor experience, but everyone else thought I was going to go like chuck it in the woods somewhere. So they were all trying to prevent me from getting this flint. I just wanted to make a fire, and I made the fire finally because somebody let me have the flint. I made the fire, put the wood in, and then I went and took a nap. That's all I wanted to do, and I was fine after that. I just needed my nap.
So your original tribe has just tried to vote you out. It was going to be about a unanimous vote as it comes. I mean, coming off of that, do you feel like you have new lease on life? Or you're like, okay, I clearly I'm playing on borrowed time, so I just need to start playing as hard as possible now. Like, what's going through your head of like, where do you go from here?
It was interesting to watch because now we're a tribe of 6, correct? And Frank comes back and like he's like, "Listen, I want to talk to you when you are ready." And so when I was ready, I talked to him. He was like, "I'm pissed. I am so fired up right now. Like, I did not want you to go. I want you to know that." And so, like, in the game, in the moment, you're like, how much can you actually believe of what people say? And so, like, in the moment, I was just like, I don't care now. Just give me anything. Let's go win a challenge. That's all I care about. Let's put our heads together. And that was really my mindset, was just like, listen, I don't want to talk right now. You guys all just tried to vote me out. Can I at least have some privacy? And I think they were all very respectful in that.
Well, you go to the next challenge, and thankfully you swap. And I think you're a player that likely very much needed that swap.
Yes, I did. And it was a very stressful time again, because it's always sucks getting a new tribe, because it's like, yes, you may have been a bad situation in the last tribe, but you can always get in a worse situation. Luckily for me, I think I had the perfect outcome for what I was kind of hoping for. I would have liked to have been with Sharif or a Megan or somebody like that, somebody that I could reconnect with. But I got Carly and I got some of these yellow members. I was like, this is an opportunity for me to extend an olive branch, be like, I just got fucked over by my little tribe. I need a new home. You guys are 4 on 9. You need a 5. Here we go.
So you immediately launch into your next challenge, right? And this is where you have to balance the blocks on the little platform over something with ropes, and your tribe wins this. How was this for you?
This was fun, because this is another one of those things that I make at home. I had been doing it at summer camp that I work with. I work with kids all the time. And I had made this for my summer camp. And so this is like a challenge, like, listen, I got this. We need to calm down. We need to work together, and we need to figure it out. And so we had to have 2 groups. It was supposed to be 4 and 4. And if one dropped, the other one started, picked up all the pieces and started again. But we just said, listen, we need 4 people that are very confident. The other 4 people need to just come in. If we drop, they come in and just drop immediately so we can start back on it again. Because it's better if you have the same people doing the same thing instead of having a break. I know people like to think that if you watch it and you can experience what they are messing up on. Not for this challenge. This is a challenge where you have to figure out as you're doing it, because you are going to find different ways than the other 4 people are going to. And we had a better strategy, I think, that got us quicker through the first half. The other tribe did a very slow, monotonous strategy where they placed the blocks. They did it very particular. We had made it to where it was a square, and it was it was one rope on each side. And I told the people, I said, all right, if the top person is placing the block next, the two people on the side need to come in at an angle, creating a triangle. That way, that's more of a support, right? And I think this is where some of more of that, like smart water, all that kind of stuff comes in, because it's like, oh, he's bringing in like geometry into a challenge. Yeah, we don't worry about that, right? And so that helped us get through that first half of the challenge a lot faster than I think the other tribe, and that's why we were able to recover better while they were dropping a lot during the end. They'd get to the end, but they drop it right at the end. We figured out a way to stay calm.
Yeah. So you win. You swapped the red camp. What's life there? You're on the. Let me see if I get the name right. You're on the Achila tribe now.
Yes, we are on Achila, and I think we went to the old. We might have gone to the old Achila tribe.
Yeah, I think so. I think your tribe is too close, so they put the Equality 2.0 tribe in a whole new campsite. Right. But I think you should have returned to the old Achila tribe area, to my knowledge.
Right, because we got the choice of which tribe we got to go back to. And so we said we tried to find the two people that were in those two camps, and we're like, which one's better? And they said, obviously, let's go to this one. And so we went to that camp, and life was good. I just got to work, and it's like, the shelter's good, but we can make it better. I took some ideas from Frank. I made some benches, whatever. Nothing nearly what he did, but I made something for us to sit on, sleep on, whatever it was. And I think that just made camp life just that much better.
So you're meeting a lot of people on this tribe, and so let's talk through them. So you have Lydia.
Sorry, who was it?
So you meet Lydia on this tribe.
Yes, Lydia. Oh my gosh. Lydia was one of the people that I was so excited to meet about this game, because I remember talking to her a little bit before on production side, and I just thought she was a wonderful person. And I was so excited. And she brought out this like stupid frog hoodie that she had. It was so funny, because I remember the first time I saw it, it was like the middle of the night, and she just sat up for something, and she has this frog hoodie on. I'm like, who is that? And she is just the like ideal person I like working with, because she likes to have fun. She likes to have a good time. She likes to work with people that she likes working with, enjoys being around. It's not necessarily you have to be here because you are a number. It's like, I enjoy being around you. That's why I want to work with you. And those are the people that I like, right? Obviously, especially if they like me back. But I mean, she's just got this great laugh and a lot of life to her that I just really enjoy being around.
You also meet Brent, who comes from the Yellow tribe.
Brent was one of those people that I saw as the calmer people, the people that were able to stay a little bit more quiet when they needed to, talk up when they knew, and like the more level people. So obviously I was scared of that, but I was very interested in getting to know him and making sure that he knew that I was on his side. I felt like he was going to be the hardest one to convince that I was with him, because he understands the game. He knows that not everybody's there for other people's interests. So I had to really focus on making sure that he was trusting me. And so I spent a lot of time like giving him handshakes and saying like, I am good. I got screwed over. You guys can trust me. You need me. Like the whole book. And it's the truth. I really did want to work with him.
And so you were pretty public with like, hey, I just played my shot at dark and I just survived where I shouldn't have.
Right. Especially with the people that I was just meeting. I was like, this is my new beginning. I have people from my old tribe that I'm still interested talking to. I'm not going to just shove them under the rug because it's not fair to them. It's like, okay, you guys were part of a group decision, but I want to find out what you stand for as an individual. And that became a very important thing on our tribe, because we had Lydia Taylor from Red come in. There was also Reynolds and
Amber.
That was
from your blue tribe.
Right. Reynolds and
then you
Amber.
get Todd, Carly, and Brent from the yellow tribe.
And Adam.
And Adam, yeah. So you get a large contingent of yellow players.
So there's 4 yellow, and then there's the 4 blue and red, and then there's me. And so what I did from this point on is I publicly played both sides at this point, in my opinion, in what I saw I was doing. I told both sides like, hey, I'm going to be talking to the other side to get information from us,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so like I'm going to yell and I'm saying, hey, this is what blue and red are saying. I'm going to blue and red and saying, this is what yellow's saying. And I'm trying to keep everybody informed enough to where I'm still keeping some power. I'm still keeping some information flow,
Mm-hmm.
but I wanted everyone to feel like I was giving them proper information. And I thought it was working very well because nobody really batted an eye. Nobody really cared.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was fine. Sorry, we get back on track of the people that I'm meeting for the first time.
Did you was the tribe divided between originally yellow versus red and blue? Was it very clear that's where things were going?
I don't think it necessarily was, but I wanted that to be the perception because if I was in the middle, that gave me options. If we ever had to go to tribal council, or if we didn't go to tribal council, it was even better. That way, everybody thought I was on their side, right?
Okay.
So I was okay with it. I think it could have played out differently, but I really wanted to push that yellow needed to stay together because people were talking about voting them out.
What about Taylor? You mentioned her as a player that you were excited to meet.
Taylor, I was excited to meet because she was my other tribe handler. Reynolds and Taylor were my tribe handlers the previous season. So it was very exciting to get to spend some time with them and just catch up after a while. And obviously, I knew they were very close. I knew that they were going to be 1-1 with each other. Amber was very apparently getting close with Reynolds and Taylor. And so like it was definitely showing their cards right now, being like, okay, these are the people that are going to work together. And you had to be very careful with that. And I think I didn't stress that enough to other people that these people are working together.
You also meet Adam from the Yellow Tribe.
Adam is full of life. I think he visited us on one of the reward days, but we didn't get to talk to him enough. When we showed up, everyone went go idol searching except for like me and Nate, right? We're just hanging out with him at the shelter, just talking. And I don't think I talked to him as much there, but when we got on this new tribe, we got to talk and I love him. He's great. He's got great stories. He's got a great family that he loves talking about. And he just says the darndest things, I'll be honest. And it's great. It's perfect for camp morale.
You're reunited with Carly from your originally Noga tribe.
Yes, and I was very excited about this because I felt like the last time I played, I didn't get to know Carly at all. I just felt like I didn't really walk away knowing her. And this time I saw a very completely different Carly than I did the first time I met her. She was very sociable. She was very outgoing, talkative, and we really got to know each other this time, or at least I felt like I got to know her. And I was very excited about that just because she is a wonderful person and she has great qualities and characteristics and everything about that. And I was just very happy to get to know her. And I felt like after those first couple of days that we could really work well together moving forward, having talked to her and played with her a little bit better this time.
And finally, you're meeting Todd.
Oh, Todd. He was the dad figure out there. I think that's easy enough.
He's the Todd father.
He's the Todd father. And he was one of those people that I thought was going to be a key person to get aligned with because you want to have a loyal player on your side. And Todd is that loyal guy. He will do things that are self-interested. Like if he found an idol, he'd keep that to himself. He wouldn't tell people, but he would use it to protect his allies as well. So I wanted to make sure I was getting on his good graces. So like, he would go lay off on the trail because it was colder up in the trail. And like every now and then I would just come up and lay down with him, just be like, hey man, how's it going? You doing fine? I'd make sure that, when food is getting out, if I didn't eat my rice, guess whose portion was getting that? He's getting my portion. I wanted him to like me. So it was just kind of like, I think he's one of those key people that you want to align with him.
Did anything else of note happen that first night on the new Red Tribe?
I don't think there was anything crazy. I mean, again, it's that calm before the storm because we hadn't lost. So it wasn't necessarily looming on us that we needed to strategize, but we were obviously talking, right? I was talking to Yellows a little bit, being like, listen, you guys are still close. I'm willing to jump ship right now. And then it's trying to keep the Blues and Reds at bay and saying, listen, I know you guys screwed me over, but I'm still here to play. I'm still here to play this game. It would be dumb for me not to. So I have to play both sides. That's really was my concern, was making sure that I was socially integrating myself, but now strategically integrating myself because that's what I did wrong on the Blue Tribe. unfinished business within unfinished business was what I was trying to accomplish.
I was looking to see like who had the least amount of pre-merge tribal councils, and unfortunately, Todd and Carly come in first with 1. And then you and Adam actually tie for second with 2.
Right. No,
So-
and and I'll tell you exactly what. This is my fun fact for the season, and please add to this wiki if that's what you're doing. I am 100% accurate in winning immunity challenges this season. Every challenge I sat out of, we lost. Every challenge I competed in, we won. So as far as immunity challenges go, so I'm going to say I am not the one to blame.
Did you sit out the challenge that you got voted out on for merge?
Yeah.
Oh no.
That's the one I sat out on. Yeah. So, yeah. Even individual challenges, because I sat out of food, which was the one that we lost, and then the post merge I sat out of Pizza Palooza, which is the one we lost, and then I sat out for food at the merge. Yeah. The other immunity challenges I did win.
How was sleeping at the new camp that night?
It was fine. It wasn't blue camp for sure, but it did fine. They had a nice little almost concave in the ground, so that kept us from the wind really blowing anything out. Kept the fire nice and even on the land, so it was a nice spot. It was a really nice spot, and I slept fine.
So the next day you had your next immunity challenge. You learned that May was voted out.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
That was like, oh boy, the game's really fine, and I was like okay with it because I was like, that's one of the people that was throwing my name out. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm okay with that. But it didn't really bother me. It was just like, oh, there's definitely a game being played over there, and I'm glad I'm not over there.
So the next challenge, let's see. This is where you have to use boards and a rope with a pool ball to kind of navigate through some obstacles, and then a puzzle challenge for you.
A puzzle, yes. This was another one of my favorite moments, like just in the game, because not only because I succeeded in a puzzle, but like before the puzzle, our tribe was struggling on the actual traversing the balls, and it's because we weren't really communicating very well, as well as we should have. Our girls were fighting, the guys in the back weren't talking to each other, and so once we started picking up momentum, I was like, okay, how can I make this challenge any better or worse for us, right? And so I'm trying to communicate with my girls, the people moving the balls. They tell me to shut up. I'm like, okay, I'll shut up. But then they tell me like, no, you're supposed to keep talking, because like I was supposed to tell them when they're about to cross the line or whatever. So it was fun. But the other tribe had finished, I think, like a good few minutes before we ever got to that point. And so I'm just like, all right, what can I do to distract Austin? I have to distract him somehow because it's not going to take him that long to do a puzzle. So I need to buy as much time as I can. So like I start just walking over to his table and I'm just like, nope, that's wrong. You know, that piece doesn't go in there. I don't think you're putting that together right. And I'm just trying to distract him however I can. Can
you actually see his puzzle?
Yeah, well, I could see it for a little bit because he was standing adjacent to it, right? So I'm over here watching. He was standing back, and his tribe's like yelling. He's like, he can't do that. He can't walk up. Parker tells me, he's like, you can't cross this line right here, but you can stand up here if you want. And so like I'm just trying to find any way to rile them up, get them frustrated, get Austin frustrated. Austin finally turns his body facing me, and so what I do is I go stand up on my platform and just start looking over to see what he's doing, trying to remember how the puzzle's actually done, just seeing what he's placed down, what doesn't work already. And the tribe's just going crazy. The other tribe, they're like, get down. And Parker's just like, I never said he couldn't. Right? And so like I'm just yelling at him. And at some point somebody's like, Josh, get down. You're about to do the puzzle. I was like, oh, okay.
And then you saw the puzzle very quickly at that point.
Yes. So my girlfriend told me after that it was a 35 seconds from when the bag was opened and the puzzles came out and hit the table to when I finished. It was 35 seconds. And that's not when I intended to do. But I understood. I wasn't trying to
set a record, but if I had to.
Right. This was another part that I think was a little unfinished business because this was the challenge, or at least this is the puzzle that we had on the first immunity challenge of my last season. And I had put together the puzzle pieces correctly the last time, but I was missing one piece, and I was kneeling on it, or it was under the board, or whatever it was, because it was on the ground last time. And because I was working with other people on the puzzle, the other people were like, "All right, we need to just take this apart and start again." Right? I had it right, but we thought it was wrong because there was a puzzle piece missing. So that's what we ended up losing the challenge on, because the other tribe came in, they finished it like really fast in the 30 seconds or whatever. So this was my unfinished business, was finishing the puzzle this time and getting it done.
Do you think having seen the puzzle last year, knowing roughly how to solve helped at all?
No, I have no recollection of what it looked like other than it was an octagon. Um, I have this thing called aphantasia where I can't actually visualize anything. So if I close my eyes and you say, visualize a red apple or something like that. Most people can see a red apple, they can see the color red, or like even just a silhouette of an apple. I don't see anything. It's just a black screen basically when I close my eyes. So I can't actually visualize what the puzzle looks like. I can't visualize where the pieces go or anything like that. I just have to go off of what I know works for this kind of puzzle. The bigger pieces go in one spot. These pieces look like edge pieces, corner pieces, put those in there, and then you have a few pieces left, figure it out. And that's, I think, when I was placing down the pieces, I put one piece wrong. I said, that doesn't look right, moved it, and it looked right, and I worked out. It's just how my brain works. I don't know.
After that, so Corey is the next person voted out, and so he's the first person in the yellow tribe to go home.
Right.
Was that something you were raising to your tribe mates, like, hey, they're coming for you?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I'm telling them, it's like, listen, you see what's happening. I know May went home first, but they're going after yellows. They want yellows out. And that's the perception I wanted to have, is that this is going to end up being yellows versus blues and reds, right? I wanted everyone to think that, so that I have room to move as a former blue, and as a person that got screwed over, as a option for yellow to bring in. So I just wanted those options. So obviously I'm trying to push that as much as possible. But I'm not overly doing it. I'm just trying to throw it out there, make sure that people are thinking about it. Corey was funny too. I never met him in the game, but after the game, he was like, "You couldn't just do that puzzle like 10 seconds slower or something like that." And it was so funny. I don't know what it is about him. I would have loved to play with him. He's the kind of guy that I think I would have gotten along great with, had a good alliance with, because people were like scared. They like didn't know what he was doing. It's like, you don't have to know what Corey is doing. As long as you think he's gonna work with you, it's okay. He probably is.
So the next immunity challenge, this is the table maze that your tribe wins.
Right. And this is another thing where it's just about communication. It's really about making sure everybody understands what it is they're doing it and the best way to do it. Carly had already done this part of the challenge our season when my tribe won. I think this was our first immunity challenge that we actually won. So I said, okay, you can do the lifting the ball up through the wire. Can you do the grappling hook? She said, absolutely. And so what I said is like, all right, we have Todd, and now we have, I think it was Adam was the other one. They said, you guys are tall enough. You guys can reach up very nicely to that top of the hole, because you guys are probably at the same level. So you guys need to be up there, and you guys need to just keep it as level as possible. Don't let the ball go too fast. Keep it straight, and I will deal with it after that. Just get it to me, and I will get it in the bucket. That's all you need to do. And that's part of the visualization, is we all work together, but we all have our own parts, and we need to do our parts flawlessly. And I think that's what I was very good at communicating, is like, this is your task, or what are you good at? What do you think you're most comfortable doing? Please do this the best that you can. And so we ended up we did the first part very quickly. I think, I don't think we dropped the ball maybe one time, right? In the 3 attempt, or so I think maybe we took 4 attempts to get it in the bucket. And I think that's a tribute to, I'm a little bit shorter, so I can get down a little bit quicker, get to the bucket a little bit faster. And then we never dropped on the maze, because I took the initiative on saying, like, listen, it's better if one person says a voice, if we're all talking, saying different things, we just need to talk it out, right? It's no problem if only one person is talking. If multiple voices are going, it's not going to be good. So I took initiative on that, and at some point I said, do you want me to keep talking? And they all said yes, and so I just kept talking. This is the best way we go. This is how we're going to do it. I'm going to drop, you're going to drop. Now drop, right? And we took it step by step. We didn't make adjustments without somebody saying, this is what we're about to do. And that just ended up working better.
Mhm.
It's Survivor is all about teamwork in a lot of these challenges. There are individual aspects, but it is teamwork in general, saying you got this, you can do this, and making people feel confident. If they don't feel confident going into it, saying, "Oh, but I'm not really good at a puzzle. I'm not really good at traversing a ball." No, you have to be confident in that.
Mhm.
And that's what I feel like I'm okay at doing, is getting people confident in their roles.
So back at camp, you just had your third win as this tribe.
Right.
Is there? You said like you're trying to play off these two sides of each other. Is there more concrete strategy that's emerging among this, or people are kind of hesitant
Oh,
because the shoe hasn't dropped yet?
absolutely. I think there is more concrete stuff. I just don't think it's really like at a name basis yet. So we're not dropping names
Mhm.
yet, but it's definitely kind of like, all right, if we were to go, who would our options be, kind of thing.
Mhm.
I'm trying to focus on my connection with Carly at this point and telling her, like, listen, last time I know that I didn't do you right, and I didn't talk to you enough, and I didn't all these things. And I made sure to hammer it in. I'm like, you know how good I work with the people I work with. You know how loyal I am to the people I'm with.
Mhm.
That can be you this
Mhm.
season with me. And I really wanted to drive that in. And I wanted to make sure Todd understood. And then Adam and Brent, they were both collectively good. And I just focused on socializing with them. That's all that really matters. It's the same as the challenges. If people feel comfortable, they're more likely to work with you.
Mhm. So it seems between these two sides, you were leaning more towards the yellow side.
Yes, and the only hesitation I had about that was that Lydia's name was in the mix, and I would not vote for Lydia if that was the thing. I
Why
was
was her
never
name?
going to vote.
Why was her name coming up?
Her name was coming up because of Frank. Frank was, I think her and Frank were very obviously close, from prior seasons, from having worked together.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think she was just coming up as kind of a security. I think our intentions were to always go after an Amber or a Reynolds,
Mhm.
but her name was kind of like the backup, and
Mm.
I don't think it came up till later, but it was definitely out.
So you go to your next immunity challenge. This is one that you did your season as well. That race out. In this case, it's not true, but grab a marble from randomly, and then you
Right.
end with basketball.
Yep. I sat out. I wasn't doing it. And the truth of that was, we were initially going in with Lydia was working, um, uh, and then the whole Frank vote came out, right? And
Yep.
so Lydia became emotional, Amber became emotional, and it was this whole thing where it's like, okay, we need people to gather themselves, and we just didn't have the time to gather ourselves. So we ended up having Lydia sit out. Taylor had a bad knee still, so we were just like, all right, you don't need to be running. And it just kind of came out to like, all right, who else needs to sit? And I was just like, I'll sit, because Amber, I think, had to play at this point because she had sat out the last challenge.
Mhm.
So I was just like, all right, here we go. I'll sit. It's not a big deal. You guys got this. And it just wasn't in our favor. We just didn't communicate very well. I think that's really what did us in, is because I think we were neck and neck with them, maybe one person behind. But there was a point where Todd or somebody didn't communicate with somebody else on what box they're supposed to open, or whether it had already been opened. That box got picked at the same time, and it just brought the whole tribe down because we were like, oh, we're so far behind.
Mhm.
And it's a morality thing. Morality is the most important thing in Survivor. And once your morality's gone, so are you.
So do you wish you had competed in this challenge because you might have seen? Because it seems like one of the skills you bring on top of puzzles is good communication.
Right. I don't think my communicating skills would have helped necessarily with this, because it is an element of luck as well when it's coming up to the boxes. Because it was three boxes, and you had to pick out a marble, and if it was right, you got it. If it was wrong, you had to go back and do it again. And you could switch out with different people, but I think that was kind of the problem. Is one of the farther boxes we had
Yeah.
gotten wrong. Instead of sending the same person out, we sent somebody different, and they just didn't communicate. So I think we could have gotten quicker, but I don't think we would have won
Mhm.
regardless.
So you lose this challenge. And the shoe is now dropped. You're going to the tribal council finally after a
Right.
full day of R&R. Talk me through the strategy of this round.
This was a complicated thing because I now had to tiptoe around everything. I had to not show my cards in that I had chosen a side.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to make up something. And the way it ended up lying was we were going to split the votes because apparently Yellow said that they thought they had Taylor, which in my mind was like, why would Taylor go against Reynolds, anything like that, or her former tribe mate Lydia, which were the two people I think we had votes on. Or it might have been Amber and.
So the vote it ends up being a 4-3-2 where Lydia, Taylor, Amber, and Reynolds all vote Brent. You and Brent vote Amber, and then
Right.
Todd, Carly, and Adam vote Lydia.
Right. So in the original, because we had a lot of jumping around, there was different plans coming into tribal council, but at tribal council we had a lot of standing up, a lot of live tribal council stuff happening. And in the live tribal council, one of the things that I thought was the most important thing for my game was the Yellow people stood up and they said, Josh, come on, right? At tribal council. And when you have somebody actively saying, come here, work with us at a live tribal council, the most important part of the game, you feel good, right? And so I wasn't necessarily worried after that point, but it was still a matter of how does this execute where I still walk away with everybody still wanting to work with me. And so I ended up voting with Yellow because that was the plan. I had told Lydia and I had told the Blues and the Reds saying, I'm going to vote with Yellow because it is going to be a tie vote. I know you guys have an idol and we just need one person to do it right. And so I think the idea was it was going to be a 3-3-3, right? And in that case, I could have flipped if it ended up not being on Lydia. I could have stayed with Yellow if Lydia wasn't in danger, whatever the case may have been. And I tried to probe the Amber Reynolds area because we knew that one of them probably had an idol because somebody had said something at some point like, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be fine this tribal council or something like that. I tried to push it, say Lydia needs it, right? And it just didn't work out that way. And Lydia went home, and that was probably one of the most frustrating parts of that tribal council was just because I lost somebody that I really thought would have helped me with that game.
Did you know Brent had an idol?
I did not, and I didn't care. It wasn't my place to know what Yellow had. I told them, I said, you guys are trusting me blind. I understand that. You don't need to tell me anything. I'm going to tell you what I know, and I'm hoping that you trust me. If you need me to vote somebody else other than who you're voting, that's fine. I want to prove my loyalty to you, and that's what I wanted to do. So it didn't matter who had it on Yellow. I'm glad it got played, but at the expense of Lydia, I was very upset for sure.
Was there anything you think you could have done to help save Lydia that round?
No, because in the moment, Taylor had already set her mind, and she played the card of, I didn't know, or like I was confused, or whatever. Like, we know what you were doing, Taylor. I know what you were doing. But it's just like at that point, there's nothing I could have done to prevent that, and I was just happy that it didn't end up on me. But I was,
So Lydia goes home, and that's kind of the night. Is there any following action back at camp that evening?
I don't think there's much. I think people are obviously upset that the game is, but they are all happy that they are still there. Brent is obviously happy that he negated 4 votes against him, which would have sent him home at that tribal council. Amber's happy that she and Reynolds are still there, and Taylor's happy that her friends are still there, and I'm happy that I didn't get any votes this time.
Yeah, because you end up catching
15 at the end of the game.
Unfortunately, you don't set the record for the season. I apologize for that. You tie with Skylar for 15, right. And Reynolds gets 16. So you almost did it.
Almost, and that's okay. I did it in 2 tribal councils, though. I'm going to say that.
It took me less tribal councils, but it took him most of the season to achieve.
Right.
And I know. Someday, if I'm really good on board, I'll make a spreadsheet of everyone's cumulative votes and records over all their seasons played. But I don't know, and Reynolds can't qualify because I don't know season 4, so you'll beat him there. So you make it to day 5. How are you feeling that morning?
I'm feeling great. I felt like I walked away with everyone still in my pocket at that tribal council. Lydia obviously went home. She was the only person that I felt like was not getting enough information. She was already having a bad time because Frank was out of the game. She was checked out a little bit. She still wanted to be there for sure. Yeah, absolutely. But I think in the moment, it just was not her time.
Hmm.
Um, and I felt bad about that for sure. But walking back to camp, I just helped Yellow. I voted with them. I proved my loyalty. I said, "This is what I know. This is everything." And I felt like they walked away thinking that they could trust me. I
Hmm.
walked away with Amber, Reynolds, and all them, having talked to them privately, saying, "These are the people getting votes. These are who's trying to go, trying to keep them information." I felt like they also felt like they could work with me moving forward. So I was happy moving. I was just upset with who went on.
So you learn that, as with the new era, you have to earn the merge. And so how this will work is there's a good challenge. If you can choose between a skill, a dexterity. No, it was like skill, endurance, or memory. Kind of
Right.
just theme challenges. And if you win the challenge, you make the merge, and 7 players will go to a loser tribal council essentially. Okay,
Right.
so kind of like a secondary swap style thing. Talk me through this, because this ends up being good for you overall, I feel.
Right. I was worried for some reason. I had gotten the seventh pick because we all did a random draw for what number we got to choose, right?
Hmm.
So if you were first, you got your first choice. Second got whatever. Um, and so I was the seventh pick, and for some reason I was like, oh man, all 6 spots for the skill challenge are going to be taken up in the first 6 because I thought that was clearly the easiest thing to do.
Hmm.
And so I was worried about it. But then like Carly was the first person to go and she chose the memory right off the bat. I was like, oh cool, I can get it regardless. So it didn't matter for me. I knew that I could do the skill challenge because it was just throwing sandbags on the thing. And I practiced that. I make sandbags for my Etsy shop, right? So I practice this a lot. Like, all right, I have to make sure the sandbag works. So I throw it like 5 times and try to land it on a table. So I do this a whole lot. And it's dumb. I know. It's really dumb. But
Secret skills coming out right there.
right, random skills that come out just from working survivor stuff. Yes. And so I was like, okay, this is gonna be fun. And I knew I didn't want to do memory just because I don't have the greatest memory. I felt like if I had to, I could have done it, but I'd probably not win. And then the endurance, I was so scared of. I was like, there are guys out here who could probably do this for hours if they needed to.
Hmm.
Um, and so my thing was just I want to win. I do not want to have to go to another tribal council right now. I'm okay. Um, and so my idea was like, I'm looking at the bags, I'm listening to Parker give the rules, and he's like, I'm just like, all 3 bags fit in my hand pretty nice. That table's not too far away. I could probably throw all of them. And so I'm just listening to Parker tell me I can't throw all the bags at once. And he doesn't say it. And
Hmm.
so he says go. And I'm just like, okay. And I get it on the first try. I'm like, I'm done. And Parker's like watching the other table. And he looks around, he's like, oh, but Josh is done. Josh wins. I was like, yeah. And there was a funny moment like right before the challenge starts that I was holding my bags and I was like looking down the line to see if anybody else was holding one bag or holding all 3. And I saw Austin look at me and he kind of just went because he was doing the same thing, but I think his didn't quite land. But yeah, I mean, it definitely worked out for me. Then Sharif and Austin both did end up eventually getting it,
Hmm.
which was really nice getting into the house for a morality boost.
Yeah. So how was the time in, I don't know what do you call it? It's the winner's mergatory in a sense. How was that time?
It was great. We just got to hang out. We got to talk to each other. I don't think a whole lot went on. I think I just was able to pull Sharif off to the side for a minute and just be like, oh, it's so good to see you. You know, we have so much to catch up. Todd was there at some point, and lo and behold, Todd is a Marvel guy. Todd loves the Marvel stuff. And so, like, we're talking to Todd about his favorite Marvel movies. Obviously, he's a Captain America guy. But I mean, it was just a good time. We were having a good time, and that's all that I really cared about.
You also meet Skylar and Tony for the first time here.
2 people filled with life. Again, I say that about a lot of people, but it's just true. It's people that have good energy and high energy are the people that I love being around. And Skylar's a teacher, and so she has to have this high energy, and so she brings that into this game, and that is part of who she is this high energy, not loud per se, but a loud presence. And I love it because she's so personable and she loves communicating and talking to people and getting to know them. And Tony he's on like the different side of that. It's the same side, but a different sector of it where he loves to talk to people, but I feel like he was a little mischievous almost. Like I wanted to get to know him, but he was just like, I'll tell you later, kind of thing, right? Like he'd tell you stories, but he left some bits out that you were like, I want more.
He's pulling an Arabian Nights on you, or he's gonna like tease you with the stories and make you have to keep it round after round to get out the next story.
Yep. And I really love it. Tony was great to talk to. I got some really personal chats with him, and it was really nice. It was really nice to get to know him that way. Yeah.
So, looking at the loser group, was there an ideal person you'd love to see voted out from that group?
I'm trying to remember who else was there. I think I
So
didn't.
you have Megan, Carlos, Amber, Reynolds, Adam, Taylor, and Brent.
I think at this point I was getting frustrated a little bit with the Amber Reynolds pairing. So I was hoping that maybe they would come together and do something with that. I had no idea Amber and Carlos were that close, so that didn't really play in my mind. I thought Carlos might jump with the other side. I also wasn't mind with a yellow going home, just because that would also feed into my paranoia of the yellow, saying like they are going after you. But I was hoping that maybe it wouldn't, hoping that they get together. And I didn't even think about the possibility of people throwing challenges. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So, because Brent ends up going out in a 3-2-2 vote, which is crazy.
Right. Yes. Oh my gosh. The fact that even happens in games, especially in like with super fans, right? Like I can see it happening in Panama where you have Shane Powers and stuff like that. But when you are playing with people who play these games a lot, that is a tough thing to pull off. And that is a very impressive thing. I didn't really hear about that until after the game, like what had actually happened, but kudos to them. Oh my goodness.
So your merge tribe comes together, all 13 of you. You have a merge feast. How is that?
Oh, merge feast is great, and everybody.
It's not rice.
It's not rice. Oh, absolutely. I'm having a great time. I love sauce. Like I just took the bread and I would just mop up as much sauce as I can just to get any kind of flavor. I took like 8-10 ketchup packets, shoved them in my pockets so I could just suck on them later because I didn't care. I didn't want the rice. Give me.
You're not gonna make ketchup rice?
No, I just took the ketchup. Right, that's like almost my inhaler for Survivor. I'm very white, so that's probably about as much spice as I can take. But it's yeah. But no, everybody complained that there wasn't enough food at the. I ate plenty. I think I ate more than.
I mean, the peanut butter Oreos had to be running dry at this point.
Yeah, the peanut butter and Oreos were definitely running its course at that point. And so I'm there, I'm eating. I'm making sure that other people are like, all right, here, have some more. Like I'm handing it out, but like as I'm handing them out, I'm eating more. Right. So I think I ate way more than my fair share there, and I was fine with it because I was like, all right, I'm gonna give my rice away anyway, so nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna care. Nobody's gonna notice me. Everyone's gonna be worried about finding an idol. I'm gonna eat. I'm gonna get the rest of my calories for the rest of the week down, and it was fine. I had a great time.
So, in coming this merge, what were your priorities?
Lock down my alliance, hopefully. And my priorities were go talk to the people I had not talked to yet. Sharif, I hadn't talked a whole lot of game to yet, so I wanted to talk to him, see where his head was at. I wanted to see who Carlos was because I knew him sort of, kind of, but I didn't really. I wanted to reconnect with Megan so bad because the last time we went out and we played season 10, I didn't get to know her as well. And that might be because of who she is. She's just not somebody that really talks that much, right? Like about who she is, where she grew up, and all that. And she's more of just a person that's like, all right, let's play the game, right? We don't need to do all this extra stuff. We can do a few, but we don't need to like jump in depth. And I wish I had just made myself more present to her, other than let's play the game, right? I don't know. I don't feel like I did a whole lot wrong other than talking to Megan. That was really the only thing, because I just talked game with her. When we came in, I came up to Megan and I came up to Carly and I said, listen, I want to work with you guys. Blue and red are wanting to take the game over and vote out yellows. And that traveled back to Sharif, which ended up not being good for me just because Street's very good at communicating. Has a much better connection with
Mhm.
Megan and maybe Carly than I had, and I didn't think that that would come back. I thought maybe that they would be too scared to go reach out and verify what I was saying. But from my conversations with Sharif, that was definitely what was going on. Was we were gonna go take out some yellows,
Mhm.
and so I was like, I'm trying to tell you the truth.
You think it would be better if you like had kind of pitched Amber and Reynolds are looking to take out the yellows, or trying to rally blue and red around them?
Right.
You
I
think that
think
would
if I
maybe
had
been a
just
better approach?
I think if I had just stuck to Amber and Reynolds, not so much blue and yellow or
Mhm.
blue and red versus yellow, I think that much better approach. We just split, 5 and 5 on Amber and Reynolds and whatever it is. That's a different ballgame.
Mhm.
I might be safe in that, right? We just have a big group that's working together to take out 2 people, 3 people. That's a different ballgame.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I think that's part of the little things where it's like, I wish I had done that better, but in the moment, I thought it was a good idea. I really thought that, Yellow was going to be in danger and I could help them out.
So you have your first immunity challenge, and this is an immunity challenge I think you really like. Talk to me about it.
Well, this is a challenge that nothing that I practiced before, but it's something that's like
Mhm.
you have to conceptualize, right? So we are given blocks that are maybe a foot and then 4 inches uh, diameter, whatever it is, 4 and 4, and you have to stack them vertically, right? And the idea in my head was everyone's going to try to look at the next block that they stack. So if I'm holding block 1 and block 2 and block 3, everyone's going to focus on block 3. And when they place block 4, they're going to focus on block 4. And when they play block 5, they're going to focus on block 5. That's okay. It'll get you far, but it won't get you the farthest. You want to focus on one spot the entire round. That way, you're not moving your head, adjusting each time, and focusing on a different spot. Because if you get used to the same spot, looking at the same spot, focusing on that, it's going to be the same exactly
Mhm.
every single time. So that was my goal: was just keep it the same every time.
Mhm.
And the other thing was rotating the blocks. So instead of having them flush against each other, every time I would rotate it about I don't know the degree, but where it was flat side with the corner, flat side with the corner, right? And so that way it created a little bit more stabilization for it. I don't know how. It just does. Don't ask me how. And it ended up working out. It was fine. I don't know if I could have beaten Todd, but I was very happy that 2 people won in that round.
Mhm. And so having immunity, like, how did that make you feel?
Oh, it was wonderful. It didn't make me feel any more comfortable other than like obviously being safe. It just made me feel like people are going to be more willing to approach me now.
Mhm.
And I might not hear as much strategy, but I might get more social intelligence, social
Mhm.
integration with the tribe. And that's all I really cared. Because I wasn't really out looking for idols this time at the merge. I was just sitting around camp, making sure I was doing firewood and
Mhm.
making sure people knew I was present in camp. That's all I really cared
So that evening, Taylor has a real life thing come up and asks to leave the game, but instead of quitting, asks to be voted out. And so you all head the tribal council to vote out Taylor theoretically unanimously.
about. Yeah, we were hoping it would be unanimous. That was. I thought it was very nice that we did it. Right, this was it was supposed to be in the morning. We switched it to night because it's like, all right, let's get this over with. Um, and in my idea of this like pseudo tribal council was we were going to have a public vote, right? Think
Yeah,
of when Brandon got voted out or whatever it was, right? Like we just all verbally
Jeff
agreed
Barner.
Taylor going home, right?
Mhm.
Well, I don't want to compare Taylor to Jeff
Yeah,
Barner. I
I
think
know,
that's a
but
much
like
different. No,
it's
but I know what you're
fine.
saying.
Everyone
I'm just
agrees this is happening, and you don't
right.
need to go cast votes.
Right, right. No, yes, absolutely, and that's what my initial thought was. So that when we got to tribal council and we actually started voting, I was like, but that gives people the opportunity to change up the game. This is a production
Were you tempted?
like no, I was not because I wanted to make sure that the people that could stay in the game still stayed in the game. I didn't
Mhm.
want anything crazy happening. I didn't want an idol played or whatever. Like the
Mhm.
fact that it was an actual tribal council that was happening. It kind of bothered me, and I know this is kind of a last minute decision because it obviously happened. got thrown upon Parker, and he had to make a decision, and that's what happened. But in the moment, it was frustrating because there was that Skylar vote that came in, and Taylor said, like, use this as an opportunity to change the game a little bit if you need to, and that really bothered me because it's like, no, you are leaving, you are quitting this game for whatever your reason is, and I understand that you could have a problem at home, but don't do it at the expense of other people. Don't do it at the
Mhm.
expense of other people's games. And that really became frustrating because obviously it played a part in Skylar thinking that I voted for her at that tribal council. And so I think sitting on that, I was a little frustrated with it, but I don't care at this point. It doesn't bother me. I've talked to Skylar. I was like, yeah, that was dumb. It
Mhm.
happened, but it was dumb. Um, but I think in the moment I was just frustrated once I kind of figured out all that, especially in the jury house, hearing that like that's why Skylar wanted me out, and like in my opinion, it was using production um, to enhance their game, which is against the rules. But
Yep.
that's not for me to say.
So that night, did anything else of note happen after the Taylor Tribal Council?
No, I was just emotional. I was just like sad because I knew somebody was who wanted to be in the game had to leave, right? And so I was just upset. I was happy that we had a group moving forward that could move forward and play the game. But I don't know. I had no idea about Skylar being upset and thinking it was me or anything like that. So I just thought it was another night.
Mhm. So looking at the merged cast of 12, the merged tribe of 12, including you at this point, who were the most important players in your game and who are you eyeing to get out?
The most important people to my game were Carly, Todd, Megan, and notice that I mentioned three of the final four right there that I wanted to work with.
Mhm.
Those are the people I wanted to work with. I obviously have a good idea of who is good at the game, who's going to make it far. So I had the right idea. It just didn't work out because Megan didn't want to work with me.
Mhm.
And, it's fine. I feel like that was my opportunity. And I talked to Shreve about this because he was like, dude, you really screwed up there, trying to work with Yellow and establishing this thing that wasn't really happening. Right. And in my opinion, in the moment, I was looking at the blue and red side, the side that I thought was going to happen. And I looked at the yellow side and I wanted to see what would my placement be on both sides. And I'm looking at blue and red, and I see a lot of connections that I am not a part of.
Yep.
Amber and Reynolds are always going to choose each other of each other. I know Sharif and I would have been very good, but Sharif was also very close to Carlos. Everybody loves Sharif. Sharif was close with a lot of people. Um, and there was just a lot of connections, a lot more connections that I thought I wouldn't be able to break up as easy. Whereas I saw Yellow as a pretty um, tight group, but they weren't the tightest. They could be
Mhm.
split up if they needed to. Maybe Megan and Todd would be hard to split up, but I thought maybe if it came push to shove, it was them or the other person, they'd split it, right? And so I really thought working with Yellow would be my best avenue, and I really wanted to push that, and I really wanted that to happen, and it just didn't happen.
So your ideal next vote would have been then who?
Amber and Reynolds split the votes with them. I wish I had pushed that better, saying like we need to put 5 and 5. I think one of those two people going home because at that point, all people really saw Amber and Reynolds was causing chaos. Right? They didn't really care that much about them because all they were doing was just making people pay, and so they didn't really think that they were a threat. And I thought that was the wrong take. But also, in my opinion, everybody was going into that tribal council voting Amber and Reynolds, so I really thought it wasn't going to be me. It was going to be one of those two. So I was definitely blindsided at tribal council for sure.
What's interesting about your game this season versus last season is last season you walk in the merge and you have actually a very tight, definite alliance with you,
Right.
Sharif, Barbara, and Casey, and Megan is a little bit unsure at that point, right? Well, this season, like you've really kind of been out on your own because of that first tribal council where everyone votes for you. You're just like, man, I don't really have anybody.
Right. And I don't think that's any fault of anybody. I mean, like I felt like I made the personal connections. I felt
Mhm.
like I talked to people strategically. I felt like I integrated myself well. I think I just made one mistake, and that was talking a little too much and trying to cause a little bit more paranoia than I needed to.
Mhm.
And had I not done that, had I just stayed back, not said anything, and just told people like, "Hey, I want to work with you,"
Mhm.
I think I'm still in there a few more rounds. But the other thing was the perception of me being puzzle guy and having won a lot of challenges. I
Mhm.
think that also played into the aspect of two negatives, right? Where it's like, okay, he's talking about me, he's good at challenges, let's get him out, right?
Yeah. You
Um,
somehow you're just high up on everyone's threat level, even though like in terms of physical challenge threat, I think it's there, but in terms of like massive social threat, like you don't have the numbers potentially to threaten people like other people do.
no, and I think that was part of the reason why I didn't want to move around at camp. I wanted to stay stationary. I wanted to be as least threatening as possible in a social, strategic way. I wanted everybody to think like he's just hanging out at camp. You
Hmm.
know, he doesn't like the rice. He sits at camp. He doesn't do anything,
Hmm.
right? He's just here and does challenges. That's what I wanted the perception to be, and it wasn't that, and it's fine. But I definitely wanted people to think a different way than what it
Hmm.
was. But the other thing was people like Megan who had played with me, you know, or people that had played with me in the game, like they say the smart, you know, the smart water, the he can think of scenarios that you don't think of, right?
Hmm.
I don't remember who it was, but I was listening to somebody's podcast and they were like, he's the kind of person that um, you talk strategy with and you find out other strategies that you didn't think about, right? And I was just like, well, yes, that's why you want me on your side, right? I can help you think that for you. You don't have to
Hmm.
do it. I can do it for you, right? I can tell you what the other tribes or the other side's going to do before they do it. Um, and I think Carly at some point said that I was like somebody that's good to keep around just to talk to, like strategically, right? Like I'm good with information. I'm good
Hmm.
at knowing when to give it, when to give it to who, and all that. Obviously, that didn't really work out for me, but I was hoping that that perception of me was the leading factor of keeping me, not sending me home.
Hmm.
That people would need me for strategy moving forward because there's 12 people, um, and you have to have a solid plan. And I thought maybe I could do that, but that's okay.
Hmm. Um, how was that? How was that night?
The night was fine. I slept fine. I
Yeah.
didn't think I was going home.
Because essentially, a lot of the people that had trouble sleeping in this game. It sounds like there was a contingent of people who maybe have been snoring, but you have no issue with this.
Oh, I have no issue. The snoring didn't bother me. Apparently, I was. I didn't snore as much. I snored a little bit, but I talked in my sleep a lot, and
Nice.
I like gibber and just say random things. I know sometimes I like sit up and I'll just start talking and I'll go back to sleep. I have no recollection of this, but apparently I did that a couple times.
I do that
And I
too.
slept. Yeah, I slept fine. Yeah.
So day 6, your immunity challenge. You come, you learn that it's going to be a challenge with the count and guess what's in jars, but you're also given a temptation that if enough players sit out, there will be casserole, I believe.
Mexican casserole. It was delicious. First of all, we'll
Hmm.
get to that in a second. Um, this was a thing where I think we had 12 people, and Parker said he wanted 6 people to sit out or something like that.
Hmm.
And I think off the bat, we had 4 people sit out, and it was kind of like, all right, we need 2 more, right? Um, and so I'm kind of like looking around, like, all right, if one other person drops, I will drop. Like if one person drops and nobody else drops, I will drop.
Hmm.
And I think Megan dropped after a little bit of debate, a little bit of all of us eyeballing each other, like, do we really want to just let these people eat or whatever? And like for a few minutes, I was just like, all right, I'll do it. Because in my mind, I wanted to win favor with people. I wanted to have everybody eat. I thought maybe if the people competing ate, they'd be happy that somebody stood up and dropped the ball. And maybe it would be like a kind of deal where it's like, all right, if you
Let's
dropped
not
out for
vote for the
food,
people who drop out.
yeah, let's not vote for the people who dropped out for food. And so I was like, okay, cool, I'll take that risk. Retrospectively, I should have absolutely played in that challenge because like I was sitting there with Tony on the side of the challenge. And I was like, they're not guessing that right. Like they guessed like 92 for the first one. And I was like, that's so off. Like you need to multiply that by like 5 times. And they said there's like 500 something. I was like, see, I told you.
Hmm.
Um, and so, I played this game with Tony. I was like, all right, let's keep guessing. The next one they brought out was M&Ms. I was telling Tony, I was like, all right, it's about the same size jar. An M&M is about a third, maybe a half the size of a Swedish fish. So I was like, all right, this is roughly what the guess is going to be about. And I was closer than anybody else in the game. I was like, okay, I should have. And that's the thing is like hearing some of the challenges that happened after I got voted out. I was like, yeah, I didn't want to have to win challenges to stay in the game, but I felt like I could have for a while. It's like slingshots. I'm an Alabama boy. I'll be honest. I do slingshots. I all my childhood slingshots, backyard. I could have done it fine. And just some of the other stuff, like I don't even know. I think it was like a good like 3 or 4 rounds that it came in that I was like, okay, maybe I could have done.
You could have set the challenge record for the season instead.
I think so. I genuinely think I did. And I think another thing that why I got targeted is so we have this garage. I don't know if you've ever been to the new location that we go to.
No.
But there's this challenge garage where they keep all the challenge stuff. And it's usually open. So you can kind of see some of the stuff when you're walking by. But right in the front of the garage is the cube puzzle, right? Which got the 4
Instant
colors
Insanity.
on it. Instant Insanity, right. I make that, of course. So I practice it. But it's sitting there right in front of the garage. And so obviously it's this big puzzle. It was the final travel or final immunity challenge of last season. So obviously people are like, in my mind, I'm thinking like, hey, can we put that puzzle somewhere where nobody sees it so nobody thinks about like having to go against me in that? Because like I can't say that I'm going to solve it fast, but I think I could do it quicker than some of the other people. But I don't want anyone else to think that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think just having seen other puzzle stuff and the thought of puzzle stuff coming up in the game again, people were like, no.
Well, the challenge ends. Skylar and Austin win immunity, which is fine by you because they're not one of the people that you're thinking about. Heading back to camp, talking about the strategy.
I thought we were fine with Amber and Reynolds, and that's what I was pushing. Every name I came up was like, all right, we're doing Amber and Reynolds. We got our groups of 5 or whatever it was, and like, all right, we need 5 people on this person, we need 5 people on this one. And I think I voted for Amber at that tribal council.
You voted for Reynolds.
I voted for Reynolds. Okay, so I was a part of the group that was voting for Reynolds.
Yeah, and
I was like, okay, cool.
Austin voted for Amber, and everyone else voted for you.
Right, and I had no idea. I thought maybe I'd catch a vote from Austin or from Amber and Reynolds because I was kind of distant with them this round. I wasn't really talking to them as much. I didn't. I tried to tell like on the way. I was like, Amber Reynolds, like I know we haven't talked that much this round. If you have to vote for me, you can. Like all that, because like I felt bad. I did genuinely feel bad because I did get to know them on a personal level, and I didn't mind risking my game, but I didn't know it was already in motion.
I have to ask about Austin. So like, did you tell people that Austin had told you to play your shot in the dark? Was that knowledge people had? Okay.
No, I don't think I told anybody. I'm trying to remember. I think I just told people. I was like, I had a gut feeling, whatever. I think where it came up was Austin and I would just talk about sports, like at camp. Just like it was like in the middle of the shelter or whatever, or like right outside the shelter. We weren't hiding anything. We weren't like trying to keep it quiet. We're just like, yeah, what do you think about this draft? The team coming up, whatever. And it's just like, I think people just saw that as like, oh, they're buddies right now. And there's a lot of people in the game that would like other people to think, okay, these people are duos, but not us. I'm not a duo.
I would never do that.
I would never do that, right? And so I think that's they were just trying to push the blame off to others. Yeah, that's okay.
So, tribal council comes, you are blindsided, and
absolutely, 10 votes against you hurts your heart. When you thought you were pretty good with about everybody, and it makes sense. Having sat on it, it definitely makes sense what happened, why I went home. I think it's just unfortunate that it did happen that way. I think I could have done pretty well, but that's how the game's played, and it happens.
Despite being the merge vote last season, you were not the mayor of Ponderosa. That role went to someone else, James, in fact. This season, though, you do get to be the mayor of Ponderosa. How heavy is the crown?
It's a tough crown to take. When I got back, I think they jumped right into a challenge afterwards, so I wasn't allowed to go get my stuff from my car because I had left most of my stuff, like my shower stuff or whatever, in my car, so I wasn't allowed to go out because I couldn't see the challenge. And so I'm pretty sure I just came into the Ponderosa room and I laid on the floor for like 2 hours apparently, I didn't move. I just laid there like looking at the ceiling.
Same room as last year?
Um, no, it was a different room. It was thankfully it was a different room,
Bigger room?
much nicer, bigger room.
Okay.
At least some people said it was smaller. I don't think so. It felt bigger. At least the ceiling was higher. The perception of it was better. And I had a little bit more freedom. I could walk around the house a little bit as long as I stayed away from windows and whatever else from seeing it. I was having a little bit more freedom of like, all right, you can go out a little bit, you can relax, you can lay down. But yeah, definitely those couple hours before the next person showed up or before tribal council was definitely the toughest of that whole experience. Just because, well, maybe almost getting voted out the first time was probably my toughest spot. But having just that time myself with really no stimulation or anything at all, and not being around other people was probably the hardest thing to go to.
Any highlights from Ponderosa as the game progresses?
Oh, the people that came in were great. I think Adam came in next, and then it was Skylar. Just people that I was having a great time. We were all having good conversations. We weren't being Debbie Downers about our games or whatever. We were just like, yeah, we had a fun time. This was a good time. And we were getting drunk, so that helped. So, yeah, but it was a good time.
So as the game progresses and Todd, Megan, Austin make the final three, talk to me about your, I'm sure I asked you this last year, talk about your philosophy as a juror and what you're looking for in a winner.
I want somebody that retrospectively I'm happy with winning the game. And I don't really care about what other people come in and say. I stick to what my perspective is. Of course, I'm going to listen to people, right? But I don't like taking what they have as fact, because people will come in and they want to sour the well for somebody, or they want to prop somebody up so well to make them look like give them all the credit for everything they did in the game because they really want this person to win. So I listened to what people have to say, but I didn't really care unless it felt substantial and right, and other people were able to fact check it. Like I remember Carlos was getting a lot of heat because like, oh, he was the one who voted for her, for Skylar, and like we were all talking about it. I was like, he's playing a dirtier game than we expected, and I was like, that's cool. I like that. That's fun if he can explain it better. But for me, it's at Tribal Council, that final Tribal Council. If you don't explain it right, I'm not going to vote for you, right? So I think you still have to. You can play a good game, but if you don't showcase it and tell it to me, story tell, I'm not going to vote for you.
So your vote was up in the air going to the final tribal?
Absolutely. And I think my voting status was controversial among the jurors because I said I'd vote for Todd if he gave me a good speech, right? If he gave me a better speech than the other two people, I would vote for him. And the other jurors were like, no, like I would never. And I didn't think that was fair to Todd. I think of it like Gabler, right? Gabler came in and who was Gabler, right? And then he came in and he wooed the jury, right? If you can woo the jury, you can get my vote. And I just fell in love. And it was funny because I got to ask the first question. And with my question alone, I would have voted for Megan. With my question alone, I would have voted for Megan. But over the course of the final tribal council, I think Austin gave the better answers to all of the questions in general. Megan gave good answers. Austin gave great answers.
Well, and so you ended up casting your vote for Austin to win. And what's interesting is you're one of the two votes that Megan was considered blocking at that tribal council.
Yes. And I'm not surprised at all at that. I'm hurt because I felt like I really would have considered voting for her. But which I think it would have been funnier if I did vote for her and she did block it. I think that would have been really funny. But I'm not surprised either because I don't think we really saw eye to eye this season. I think last season we weren't like, obviously she screwed me over last season, so she'd probably say, he's probably good, and I don't. But yes, I voted for Austin.
How was the post game for you?
Post game was fine. I walked away. I was able to talk to James again, some other people that are alumni, aren't alumni, whatever it is. And it was just a good experience. I really had a good time. I think the hardest moment for me was after the first tribal council that I went to. And I got that emotions out then during the game. And it wasn't a lingering after game experience. It was, I got it done then. I had to pick myself back up in the game and start talking to people again. And it was very refreshing to have that instead of having to go to a jury room where everyone's like, oh, woe is me. I did everything bad in this game. And, with every person walking in, you have to retell your story every time. We didn't do that as much this time, which was nice.
So overall, encapsulate to me your Reelfoot experience this season.
Oh, it was so much better. And I don't say that as if I didn't have a good time. You ask anybody in my life, I had the best time in Reelfoot 10 in Fowler's Point. And I talk about the experience and saying this is something that has changed me forever. But in every way, Reelfoot Unfinished Business was just that much better. We had a much more cohesive group of people that we all got along, I felt like. And I have walked away with some very deep friends after this one. And I think I will be talking to these people for a long time, right? And not that I didn't with my original cast, but I think more so now than I did the last. And I'm not somebody that really talks to people that much. I'll be honest, I'm not that social of a person. I like talking to people. I post on social media all the time, but I'm not reaching out to people like all the time, right? It's like every month I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to this person in a month. I'll go talk to them, right? So like to find myself reaching out to these people on a weekly basis or even like daily basis, it's different and it's nice.
I guess the theme of the season's unfinished business. You walked with unfinished business. Do you feel like you still have unfinished business?
I think for the most part, I set out what I wanted to do. I felt like I played a game that I was proud of. Had I made it through one more tribal council, who knows what I could have been able to do. And as far as my goals, I mean, I want a challenge. I didn't find an idol, but I'm not somebody that cares about finding idols. It's not on my bucket list. It's winning that challenge, being a cohesive person, and I think my unfinished business is settled. Other than obviously not winning, I would like to make it one more vote into a merge at some point.
You got to the second vote this time.
Right. I need to make it through 2 unstaged votes. But yeah, I mean, as far as Reelfoot goes, I'm happy. As long as I can come back and help for future seasons, as far as production, whatever it is, I'm very happy to do that. But playing again, that's up to Amos, Pete, Parker, whoever else is still running. I hope maybe sometime. Maybe I'll be one of the first few 3 times. Yes, I did. Oh, I'm sorry. Does it not?
I get a lot of feedback from it. Is why.
Sorry. Gone to my phone. Yeah, I didn't know that was the one on my mic. Sorry. I was just saying that I would love to help out in the future. If that were the case, I would definitely come back for a 3rd time if they ever decided to do that, break their one rule of no 3-timers. But
is that really a rule they have?
I think it's kind of an unspoken rule. It's kind of like, so when they were casting for this season, it's kind of like no winners, no 3-time, right? Because like especially for unfinished business, it's kind of like, you had a second try.
I've only won once, and my unfinished business is I haven't won a 2nd time.
Right. As far as I know, for their returning seasons, I think they shy away from that right now because there are so many people who have only played once that still have an opportunity, that still need that second shot. So I think they have plenty of options. I think sometime down the line they might consider it, but it's not anytime soon.
No, especially after just running a full returning season. The application is out. They're looking for new players. If you somehow you stumbled upon this podcast and you haven't played Reelfoot before, I urge you to apply just to see how you can do.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's a great experience that people should experience at least once. And it's much different than a lot of other games. It's a very different experience than other games. I think it's well worth it.
So, is there anything else you want to talk about your experience with Reelfoot that we haven't had a chance to bring up yet?
No, I think I just had a great time. I think that's really the only thing that I want people to know is that like this is a fun experience. It is stressful. It is emotion provoking, thought provoking, but regardless, it's a good time. And I think it's just something people should understand.
Well, I'd like to throw you some rapid fire questions at the very end here as we wrap up.
Okay.
So, From your original season, Fowler's Point, who still hasn't finished business?
I think somebody like a Megs or um, even like Ryan. Ryan got played a little bit in that final merge sequence. I think that would be really fun. KC would be awesome. He was obviously running his own game at the time, couldn't work
Yep.
that out. But I think KC would do very well on an unfinished business. Or there's a lot of people though. I genuinely enjoy. I think Julia would have been fun. Um, yeah, if I had to choose one, I'd give it to Megs. I feel like she got dealt a raw hand
Mhm. Who from your current season still has unfinished business?
from the current season. I think Bash has unfinished business. I think he definitely got dealt a very bad starting position this season. And I'd love to see what he can do on an even playing field with people not just targeting him because of his personality from last time. I'd like to see what he'd be able to actually change and what he'd be able to do. So
Are you
Bash,
are you
honestly.
are you following Survival Challenge right now?
I am. I
Because
haven't
he
followed.
survived the first. He looks like he's survived the first day.
He's survived the first day. He was not the first boot, so I'm very happy for him, and I'm excited to keep watching. I hope that I get to see a little bit more in depth of his strategy and stuff because I'm curious to see how much he changes it from his 2 Reelfoot experiences.
We might even wait for the video episodes of the season to air in a couple years from now, but
Right.
they'll be there.
Hopefully.
What was your favorite challenge this season?
I think most people expect me to say the little octagon puzzle, but I actually think my favorite is the table maze, right?
Mhm.
Because it is such a focus and team effort that when you can really find a group of people that you work well with, that is more satisfying than finishing any puzzle fast or running as fast as you can, swimming wherever it is. Being able to work cohesively with people is more satisfying.
What's a puzzle or challenge you'd like to see in a future season of Reelfoot?
I think, and I th- they have this challenge where it's like a lot of blocks that are stacked up or whatever, and you have to like throw sandbags to knock it down,
Mhm.
and then you build it back up. Something like that, or Australian Survivor does some great endurance challenges for tribal phases. I'd love
Mhm.
to see more endurance. I think they can work that in. I think there's a way that, especially when they do these immunity challenges night before, tribal council morning after, you can have that time for an endurance challenge. Just find a way to light the scene a little bit.
Mhm.
And even if it takes hours, you still have plenty of time.
Mhm.
So I wish we did more of that.
What's your favorite camp life moment?
Camp life. I think there was a moment on Achila where Lydia and I were sitting on my little crummy little bench, right? And we see this little beetle walk up, and we're like, "Oh, cool, this little beetle." And it's got these nasty little pinchers on it, and we we watch it crawl right under Adam and pinch his butt. He goes, "Ah!" And we're just sitting there laughing. And we were like, "Yeah, we watched it go under." He's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" And Lydia and I just look at each other like, I don't know. We wanted to see what would happen. I think that's my favorite story.
That's a pretty good one, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Who do you wish you had a chance to work with this season but didn't?
Who was it? Corey. I would have loved to play with Corey. I think just the fact that we were on the tribe ever together, I would have loved to spend time with him just because the stories I've heard about him at camp and stuff like that, I would have been dying laughing. Um, and then as far as people that I did end up playing with but never really got to play with, I think Megan is that one person that I really wish um, I had that opportunity.
Mhm.
Because I think she's another one of those key players like Todd that if you can get in good with her, she's somebody that's going to stick around.
Mhm.
And so not only for the game, but I really just did want to work with her.
Who surprised you the most out there?
Carly. Oh, absolutely, 100% Carly. Unfinished business. Carly is the one who nailed that on the head. She was an early boot last season. She got swap fucked. She was nervous. And this time she came out with a newfound confidence. She, I mean, absolutely changed my perspective on her 1000%. And I am so proud of her. And I was really pulling for her at Final Four. I really wish she was there. I still would have been open minded and stuff, but I definitely really wanted Carly in the final three.
Well, you already alluded to this, but what was your lowest moment in the game?
Definitely lowest moment was after the first tribal council. There was a moment where I think last season I didn't really show that as much emotion, but after that tribal council, I was so upset just because I had put my whole life
Mhm.
to the side in that moment because I was a last edition, right? So I had to change everything that I was doing in that moment.
Mhm.
I was supposed to be working a summer camp that I had just got a promotion in, and the whole reason I got this promotion was because I wasn't doing Reelfoot this year, and then I had to go jump in and say, hey, can I actually do the Reelfoot thing? And so like the thought of going out on like day 3,
Mhm.
um, and not getting that satisfying ending for myself, and the thought that it almost happened and I would have to go back having wasted a few days already. It was very tough on me in that moment. So I just needed a nap. That's all.
What was your highest moment then?
Highest moment was I think winning the first immunity challenge.
Mhm.
Because I have two. Winning the first tribal immunity challenge and then winning the first individual immunity challenge. I think the euphoria and the hype that I got from that, the positive feeling that I got,
Mhm.
it was unmatched because the first one, it's obviously nice being in a hero position, right?
Yeah.
The final position where you actually win. And the tribe comes in and hugs you because they're like, great job, thank you, whatever. And then the individual challenge, that was my first like live game individual challenge win, right? And I talked about it twice. Parker comes up, he's got his shoulder or hand over
Mhm.
my shoulder, whatever, the Jeff Probst thing. He's like, what does this mean to you? And I think I was just so lost for words at that moment that I just spewed out some garbage. And when he asked me again at Tribal Council, I had like this really nice like thing that I had prepared and
Mhm.
said. And it was like, that is the feeling that I want to experience whenever I accomplish something moving forward, whenever I do something that I set out to do. That is that feeling that I love.
I think I know your answer to this as well, but Shot in the Dark, love it or hate it?
I hate it. I still hate it. Obviously, obviously it worked out fine for me. I'm definitely okay with it in the game that I played, but I hate the twist. I think it's so dumb. Just keep it to idols. um, you know, I think it does work better in a returning season kind of thing because there are people in returning seasons that are just kind of like, there's no hope for you,
Yep.
other than maybe if you can scoot by one round by some chance, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so I think in a returning season it works fine. I think if God forbid it's in a newbie season again, I hate it.
What is something you take away from this season, from this game, or this season?
I don't think there's anything different than I take away from my prior season. And the only thing that I do take away from these games is that there are people, vastly different lives, vastly different backstories from different regions. But in some moments, you are all the same. You are all hungry. You are all tired. And there are common ground among everybody, regardless of what your situation is, right? Um, and I think it's important that I realize that because I definitely grew up a lot different than a lot. And to know that I'm not different from everyone, right? I am the same, but I am different, and I think that's what.
You've played 2 seasons of Reelfoot. Will you play another game in the future, you think?
I think for right now, I'm kind of done with the Survivor experience. There's a few that I would be like, okay, right, I'll apply a couple times, but I'm not gonna like stress about it, right?
Mhm.
Um, I'd love to play Survival Challenge. I'd love to play Survivor New York and a lot of these games, but it's just kind of like I don't really know if I'm gonna have the time or the money saved up to do more of these. But if
Mhm.
something good comes around, I will certainly consider it. It's
Mhm.
just not my priority.
Is there anything or anyone you want to shout out as we conclude here?
I'd like to shout out my shop, Outcast Originals on Etsy. It's a great thing. Michael O'Rear does a nice podcast. Stark Wars, Marvel, all kinds of stuff. Star Wars, sometimes DCU projects. I cameo on that every now and then. And I just want to shout out you for putting on this because you take
Oh,
time
thank you.
out of your day to do all of this. And I think on behalf of a lot of other people, we really do appreciate what you put in to the Surviving Reelfoot community and really a lot of other live reality games, a lot of them. So I think you deserve a little bit of recognition.
Oh.
But I
Thank
hope
you. That means a
you're doing
lot.
well. Yeah, of course.
And I apologize. I've been doing a much slower pace this season than I have the last 2 seasons with the post game interviews, and this has just been a bit of a crazy summer for me. So I wish I could have slammed 6 in 1 week, but they will all get done maybe just at a slower pace than they have in the past.
Right, and that's fine. We know you've got a lot going on, so just take your time, make sure it works for everybody, and it's fine.
Yeah.
We're enjoying the content. I like it better that it's spread out. I have stuff to do throughout the months.
You're not going to be glued to Facebook every night to listen to me talking to me person? Josh, I'm hurt. Well, Josh, I just want to say thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciated you walking through your game and just telling your strategy and just everything along the way. I just really appreciate the chance to hear your story.
Absolutely, and I love being here. And any chance I can to come talk with you, it's a great time.
And so everyone who's tuned in, thank you so much for listening. There will be more Surviving Reelfoot Unfinished Business deep dives in the future. I'll be talking to Tony next Monday, and I'm trying to line up a date for Amber and Reynolds as well, because they will be a duo podcast. That will be a first.
Oh, yes.
So that I have a little bit of trepidation. I don't know how it's going to go, but I'm sure it'll be great.
That will be great.
Josh, again, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for tuning in.